two people who would explain to us as to how we understand, how we assess our assets as critical, and whether those assets can be categorized, classified in three different levels, such that we are then able to build a cyber crisis management plan or have an asset management plan. We also need to understand that when we talk about critical, it is not about just the infrastructure. It's not just about your, the IT infra, but it is very important that you also value the processes and the public engagements in these, for your service for the services that you offer, or for the area that you're managing. So it's very important that you are able to identify what's critical and what are those assets that need to be defined as critical. And do not forget that human resource is also a very important part of the critical infra, that asset that you need to be clearly identifying, such that you're able to then set up the right skilling sets for them, for setting up the right SOPs for performing the functions of the seats, for also giving them the right positioning, such that they value not just the function that they're operating, but the sensitivity of any misstep, or even one misstep from them may cause enormous losses to the organization as a whole. So what is really important for us to understand today is, while every small to large assets of yours need to be examined with a very close understanding of what it would lead to if its operations get disrupted, or if its sudden breakdown causes a large or a massive impact on the functioning of your organization as a whole. So what is important for us today is to listen to our experts, and I would once again like to express my gratitude to Naveen sir, and to our experts from Grid India, and to my C-DAC team, which has been working unendingly, looking at these aspects, working with the agencies, trying to understand the key interfaces that need to be understood, to understand the standards that exist, and if there is a gap, how do we really address it. So every aspect of understanding the critical infra, and therefore bringing out the right tools, the right processes, and the standards that may be required to bring forth, to handle, to give it to organizations, such that they are having something which is helpful for them to look at their organization's functioning. I once again congratulate C-DAC, Dr. Sudarshan and his entire team, Dr. Senthil Kumar, and I would like to now request Dr. Das to give his kind words. He is a very good friend of mine. Not mine, he's a very good friend of most of us in the ministry and the C-DAC, because he's always, like Dr. Sudarshan mentioned, he is the one person whom you can walk up to saying, this is where we need some kind of a test bed to be able to test what we have developed, or this is where we need your faculty to contribute for us to examine as to whether there could be a better SOB development. And he's always been there, one personally as a part of our committees, and like Dr. Sudarshan mentioned, in the various delegations where we feel comfortable and confident that India would then be presented appropriately in terms of technology, in terms of the basic principles of management, and how we apply technology in a country like India with such a varied socioeconomic and technological variance that is deployed across the country. So I also welcome Dr. Debras Das for his kind words. Thank you so much. I'll be attending the entire workshop today, and I hope to learn from each one of you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tilika Pandey. You think you have read my mind. You're so kind. You're so generous. And also thanks to Dr. Sudarshan for your kindness. And when you were speaking, you were talking about that our contributions, all of us as a team together, you are also very much part of it to the nation and building. At this point, today morning, your ministry has tweeted, Mr. Vaishnav has tweeted about IEEE Bangalore ongoing today workshop. And 25 countries, you can see today's tweet, 25 countries visited the field of post office financial transactions under the MeitYs today. And all these 25 countries are now sitting in IEEE Bangalore, 120 delegates. And they are attending a workshop on MOSIP, Modular Open Source Identity Platform, and DPI, Digital Public Infrastructures. So we are so grateful to MeitY and C-DAC and also the other organization who worked with us to make all of us proud from Indian point of view and national problems to solve. So thank you again for actually you read completely, I think, like a thought process in mind. So I thought to say that today I saw the tweet of Mr. Vaishnav, and how he came to know, I don't know, because we are doing inside, but he has all the information sitting in your office. So good. So thank you. And good afternoon to also to Sri S.R. Narasimhan and Sri Naveen Kumar, and also to Sri Magesh, and also all those dignitaries from like Sri L. Mahendra and Sri Sanmukh Puti, and also Senthil Kumar, and also Siddharth Rao for organizing this workshop. And special thanks to the MeitY. Without MeitY and C-DAC and IEEE Computer Society and all this would not have been possible. And also the big thanks to Mr. Bindu Madhav and team worked tirelessly to collect all those information and going forward very systematically. Thank you again to all of you to inviting me. I want to go forward with a couple of important things which I have been observing because I'm sitting with in one of the critical committee of a regulatory body, one of the two, after the two regulatory bodies of the India in finance. One of them I'm sitting on the technology part, on technology, and watching what are the things going on. So, I'll not take the name of the organization who was attacked recently and brought it down by the hackers, and it was a hue and cry in the Ministry of in the financial world of the country. So what we observed while reviewing those things, that as you know, these are the things you know, the critical infrastructure security is more complex and difficult because it consists of multiple technologies. It's not only one technology like only hardware, or hardware has multiple parts, starting from CPUs to the memories to all kind of things. And not only the operating systems, now operating system is much more complex because of multiple operating system, plus virtualization has come in, and there's applications and all. So it is very, very complex and multiple technologies, and through every Windows, one can come in and create a havoc in a critical infrastructure. And the top of that, if I looked at a critical infrastructure, I wanted to, okay, so much complexity is there, so many technologies, attack is happening or security breach is happening. But on the top of that, the danger has doubled or more than double, I think 10 times, because most of the critical infrastructures are connected to the networks. So who is coming in and going out to the networks? It's not so easy to catch. So what I wanted to say is, one is the technology is complex, and second is that the network adding to it has brought in much more challenges, because we have to connect it by the networks, because all the critical information technologies are interconnected because communication is needed. So the very outset, I will give you an example which we all went through recently, the COVID. Every day on the TV, you will find 4 to 5 over the 2 years, different countries, including India, virologists came on the TV. And if you see the question pattern within a 2-3 days, almost same, and everybody asking the same question answer also the almost, that they used to see the virus everywhere. If you can ask them, they will say, if you cough, there is a virus. If you inhale, that will come out is a virus. Everywhere in the handle, there is a virus. Hand, there is a virus or bacteria everywhere. But see, still the positive point is that after this pandemic, we all still, many of us are still surviving. Because due to two things. One, the deep research happened in those viruses and the bacteria within the short time, because technology has improved, gone very high level of technology in the world. And then after the inventions or research and invention on those viruses and all those things, the people who deployed the testings. So that is called brought out the vaccines. After the testing, the vaccines and the medicines. So we survived. Such a critical thing. Human being, every human has to such a critical thing we achieved. But these two things are very fundamental, which I said. One is the deep research, because every virus is unique. Similarly again, all the dignitaries sitting at here, most of them are working on securities, and they are from different areas of the securities. They can see challenges in everywhere. I go to any event, or in my labs, also people are doing research on the multiple areas of the securities and other areas. So I can see that every one of them sees challenges and the problems of security and all kind of things. So as I said, it is everywhere of the hardware, operating systems, applications, you name it, virtualizations, all kind of things. But one of those, as I said, the solution is, because as the technology is changing fast, as the virus is also changing fast, so the critical infrastructures needs huge attention to solve this problem. We need to find out the verticals inside the critical infrastructures. Verticals means every critical infrastructure may have a 80% similarities. For an example, power grid, finance like banking, or the second markets, the stock markets, or maybe as I said, power grid and our health networks, or railway networks, or any networks. If you can see, 80% of the information technologies things will be almost similar, 80 to 90%. The 10% will be very specific to those infrastructures, particularly like say power grid may have something extra called, they have a power distribution centers or power transmission centers where the transformers and all have our SCADAs are there different from a financial centers where I have a deep storage and all kind of networking kind of things. So we have 90% are same. So we have to distinguish those verticals, and in those verticals and security areas, then set up more deep research. Why I am saying the word deep research? Because we are doing research now, we have to deep dive much more and leading to the innovation, because we are doing good in research, publishing papers and all, many institutes in this country. But the innovation to the POC, proof of concept, only a few people are doing, like C-DAC or some of the academic institutions are doing, and transfer of technology to the commercialization to the Indian critical infrastructure has to be done. Why I am saying this? Because you see the opponent is doing deep research. The people who attacks us, if you look at their background, the amount of studies they do, the amount of the environment they're sitting and they're working day and night around, they are extremely intelligent people. And they are hands-on. On the top of that, they're hands-on, not only theory, they understand the systems ins and out. And they are planning for hacking you. So for that only, now I request MeitY, C-DAC, academia, and all those centers like NCCIPC and Grid India and all. So all other institutions of health, and all the institutions set up multiple verticals, deep research centers leading to hands-on. And then we can, because theoretically we are understanding a lot of things, but hands-on is system. Inside the system, where is the loopholes and all, we need to understand and go forward. I am sure this workshop will bring out more solutions during the discussion on it. I wish this workshop to be a grand success, and I thanks for the invitation. But I also want to thank these eminent speakers who have been there today, lined up after these inaugurations. Their experiences are so important to us, because these experiences are hard learned by their things. So, but going forward, again I repeat, the technology go forward, we need to set up multiple projects, multiple research centers where the next generation people should work and solve the problems which they can anticipate that these kind of attacks are coming. And before it comes in, we should have the vaccines, or we should have the resistance of softwares and hardwares to protect our critical IT infrastructures. Thank you again, and I will stop at here with my good wishes to all of you, and over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Professor Deba. Professor Deba. Professor Debabrata Das, Director IIIT Bangalore, is Project Officer of National Mission for Interdisciplinary Cyber-Physical System in the area of Advanced Communication System and member of Task Force on Cybersecurity. He is Chair of IEEE India Council. Thank you, sir, for your kind words. Shri S.R. Narasimhan, CMD, Grid India, has an extensive experience in power grid, which consists of cyber-physical layers. He is working towards making our energy system more reliable, resilient, economic, and clean. I invite him to share his thoughts with the participants.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. First of all, thanks for the introduction. And I would like to thank C-DAC and the IEEE Computer Society Bangalore chapter for having me here on this very important workshop on critical infrastructure security. I'm glad that I could make it. I got slightly delayed. I couldn't join at 2:15. My apologies for the same, but nevertheless, I think I'm in time. And in fact, it's heartening to see this, like my association with C-DAC, it goes back 3 decades. When in the Northern Region Load Dispatch Center and Eastern Region Load Dispatch Center, we had the first indigenous SCADA system in operation, and that was done with close cooperation with the extensive work done by C-DAC. And today we are talking about Atmanirbhar and other things, but we had a start during those 3 decades back with C-DAC commissioning the systems in Northern Region and Eastern Region. And it was a very user-friendly system that we had. So unfortunately, later on, like we had to upgrade the systems. Then we needed advanced energy management system applications. So possibly, like in international competitive bidding and all that. So we had to, then upgrade the system, but it was a very excellent interaction that we had during those days. And I'm very happy to note how the C-DAC itself has transformed itself over the years. And today they are actually taking care of very prestigious assignments at the national level, and cybersecurity, definitely we have a lot of interaction with C-DAC on the various systems that we need to upgrade as far as cybersecurity is concerned. And I have a keynote later on in today's session, so I would not like to bore the audience at this stage, but I would reserve all my further interactions in my keynote session. I wish this entire workshop a grand success. I'm happy to note it has a very good participation from all over the country, and I wish this workshop a grand success. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for your kind words. I would like to thank Professor Debabrata Das, Director at IIIT Bangalore, Ms. Tulika Pandey, Scientist G MeitY, Shri S.R. Narasimhan, CMD Grid India, Dr. S.D. Sudarshan, Executive Director, C-DAC Bengaluru, for taking out their valuable time for inaugurating the workshop on critical infrastructure security, and for your words of wisdom. I would like to thank all of you for joining for the inauguration ceremony. Now we will begin with the first keynote session. Shri Naveen Kumar Singh, DG, NCII PC, is a member of various committees on cyber security. National Critical Information Infrastructure Protection Center is national nodal body for identification and protection of the critical information infrastructure of the country. He is member of various committees on cyber security. He was part of Indian delegation for UNODC on cybercrime in Vienna. He worked for about 4 years as nodal officer for cybercrime in Jharkhand, where he developed a proactive response mechanism for tackling cybercrime, for which he was given the FICCI Smart Policing Award. He has contributed in establishment of the crime and criminal tracking and networking system of Jharkhand Police, development of its website, social media policies, and citizen-centric services. As an IPS officer, he is credited with bringing improvement in the system wherever he served. I welcome him to deliver the first keynote session of the workshop. So please.
Thank you so much. I hope I am audible. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
At the outset, I would like to thank C-DAC Bengaluru for organizing this workshop on critical infrastructure security and giving me the opportunity to address the distinguished participants of this workshop. In the keynote address, I would like to focus on things regarding which we have visibility. At the outset, I would like to first say that NCIPC is a body which is the national nodal body for protection of the critical information infrastructure of the country, and the critical information infrastructure is defined in the IT Act as any information infrastructure whose incapacitation or destruction will have a debilitating impact on the national security, national economy, public health, and public safety. So based on this definition, we have identified 7 critical sectors. The first one is the banking, financial services and insurance sector. Then we have the telecom sector. Then we have the power and energy sector. And then we have strategic and public enterprises sector. Then we have the health sector. We have the transport sector, which covers all modes of transport, air, water, as well as ground, that is railways and metro railways. And then finally, we also have the government sector. Now, within these critical sectors, again, we identify the critical information infrastructure, and then we are supposed to take all necessary measures for their protection. So by virtue of being the national nodal body, all these entities, they are supposed to give us information regarding the cyber incidents which happen in these entities. And we also interact with a lot of similar national bodies across the globe. And what we have seen is that in the last 2-3 years, the global cyberspace, there is increased dependence of people for everything working in the cyberspace. There is a lot of use of these industrial control systems also, apart from the normal IT technology everywhere. COVID has increased the level of our dependence, and it has introduced new ways of working overnight, which means that a lot of additions in these systems were done without having enough time to assess the security related impacts of these additions and all, and so which has actually left a lot of attack surfaces for all the threat actors. And what we actually see is that a lot of state actors also these days are involved in these acts, and the attacks are more and more becoming complex. And we are seeing a lot of attacks which are quite persistent, in the sense that the adversaries, they try to maintain persistence in your system so that they can act and probably disrupt your system at a time when they actually need to do it, rather than doing it at some other time where it doesn't serve much purpose. And they are able to do it without getting detected. They are able to evade all the modern detection systems. So this is something which is a cause of worry for us. And the more and more we are seeing that a lot of outsourcing is taking place in the maintenance of these information infrastructure and even the critical information infrastructure, because all the expertise is not in the hands of one entity. So you have outsourcing in the form of even outsourcing your data center, putting things on cloud, or you outsource the maintenance, or you outsource the SOC functioning. So there are a lot of various ways in which the things are being outsourced. But what we are seeing is that a lot of attacks these days are not taking place on the main entities, but a lot of these attacks are taking place on all these managed service providers or the vendors, I would like to say. And unfortunately, their cyber security is not as good as of the entities. Of course, there are cases where even the better. But in general, we are seeing a marked trend of the threat actors now trying to launch attacks on the managed service provider, because normally one managed service provider is providing services to a lot of these entities, and if they are able to break into the systems of one of the managed service providers, they actually get access into a lot of these critical information infrastructure entities. So so we need to be careful when we are outsourcing the management of the system or the maintenance of the system. And even for maintenance, when we are giving remote controls and all that time also we see a lot of other things happening. If we give this kind of remote control for maintenance of the system without having enough visibility as to what they are doing during this time, then these are the things which lead to a lot of problem. Then we are seeing a lot of these ransomware attacks these days taking place, and these are some attacks which are quite disruptive, and unlike some of the other data breaches kind of attacks which we are seeing on the critical infrastructure. Data breaches are more where the adversary just want to quietly take your important data, and they just don't want you to know that something is happening, and they don't disrupt your system so that you keep working without any botheration. But so in those cases, we find that even the critical infrastructure entity, they do not have enough incentive to report these things or even admit that such a breach happens. But with the ransomware, the problem is that your system gets disrupted immediately, your customers don't get service, so you have to immediately declare these attacks. And we are seeing these attacks in many important critical information infrastructure, or I would say the important organizations. For example, in the power sector, we saw the attack on the Tata Power, the ransomware attack. We also see the ransomware attack on Mahagenco's generation as well as the transmission systems. We saw the ransomware attack in the Oil India Limited. Then we also saw the ransomware attack on the JNPT systems, the AIM system. So many important entities are being affected, and the threats are actually not only very complex, but they are actually something which are very real. And on the other side, if you look at the, and then the other attacks which we are seeing is more related to theft of IPRs and R&D related material, which is another trend which is worrying, and over which we are basically trying to focus on when we focus on the protection of the CII entities. The other thing which I would like to bring to the notice of all is when we are talking about these remediation or improving our cyber security, then the other bottleneck which we find here is that most of these security solutions, they are all foreign OEM made, or most of these even the IR companies which are coming, whether it is Mandiant, CrowdStrike and all, they are all entities who send all your telemetry data and all the malwares, etc., which they get into during the attack. It is first sent to their headquarters somewhere else before we come to know of it. Given those challenges, there's an urgent need that we develop our own skills, not only in terms of manpower, but also in terms of providing the right kinds of cybersecurity products and tools which can actually help us in securing the system, not only in the IT, but more so in the OT or the industrial control systems, because we are seeing a lot of these attacks taking place in the ICS systems and all also. In fact, you might be aware that there was this Triton malware attack where it was designed to basically break the safety instrumentation systems. Then if you actually look at the Russia-Ukraine war, then there, just before the advent of the war, we saw a major attack by Russia on the Viasat KSAT network, which was actually providing satellite-based connectivity to not only the Ukrainians but to a lot of other European countries. There, the Russian threat actors were able to go to their systems through which all the modems used to get some kind of a patching, I would say, though it was not exactly a patching. And from there, they were able to introduce malwares into a lot of modems, which all became functional. And finally, the concerned entity had to replace all their modems, and it took more than a month for those satellite systems to again come on track. US pipeline attacks, colonial pipeline attack, you would all be aware of the JBSSA cyber attack on that meat company. So these are all attacks which took place on a lot of systems which had OT as well. So the point I'm trying to make is that there is a real imminent threat from very sophisticated threat actors on our OT systems. And the other point which I'm trying to make is that we need a lot of indigenous development, not only of the products, but also of the skill sets and standards through which we are able to protect our critical information infrastructure. And we really need to work towards ensuring that, because if you look at some of the other attacks which we have noticed, then we actually see a lot of targeting of our power sector, apart from the telecom sector, and all of these strategic and public enterprises also being targeted. So this is the right time when we need to have these workshops. And I feel happy that C-DAC Bengaluru has taken a lot of steps in trying to bridge the gap which is available, and try to bring some indigenous systems and some indigenous skill sets, so that not only we get products and tools which are which can help us in ensuring the cyber security of our OT systems, but also in developing the skill sets which is required for their production. A lot of other things also, a lot of other areas are also there where we need to work out. For example, OT SOC is another new area where very few even entities work across, even globally. So now with a lot of these researchers and passionate people in this workshop, I would request you all to focus on some of these areas which are niche. If we can actually develop some of the products, tools and capabilities in these areas, then we can not only help us in protecting our critical information infrastructure, but we'll be able to sell these products and expertise throughout the world. OT SOC is again one such area, because OT SOC is still a quite developing area. Some of the entities, I'm sure my subsequent speakers may be talking about it, are actually trying to develop these OT SOCs, and a big question there is what kind of a what needs to be monitored, and what needs to be seen in the OT SOC. So all those questions are things on which we need to work together and find out more indigenous solution to have a more secure critical information infrastructure. I would say ki, apart from these tools and all, capacity building is one area where all these entities, whoever are working in these fields, we actually need to have an assessment as to what are the skill sets in which we are deficient, and what are the skill sets which are actually required, and how can we bridge this gap? What kind of a specialized training is required for the people who are actually deployed in the critical information infrastructure protection, and at the same time, the general awareness level or the general hygiene level of the employees is again something which we need to take care of. So what kind of an awareness program and capacity building program needs to be build up is again something which is the need of the hour, and which all these entities or the whose members are there, they need to take care of. Another area where we find a lot of work needs to be done is even in the cybersecurity audits and the vulnerability assessment and penetration testing. There also we find that the desired standard which is required of the audits and of the VAPT tests in this critical information infrastructure, there again there is a lot of scope for improvement, and I see no reason why with a lot of IT pool available in India, why can't we be producing some of the best VAPT professionals in the field, and that is again one area where we can not only develop our skill sets to be able to protect our own critical information infrastructure, but we should be in a position to actually export these skill sets which are not available anywhere else in the country. So this is again one area where we actually need to work hard, because the scope of the audits we find is not properly defined, and even if it is defined, the how rigorously are you able to do, what kind of skill sets do you have to actually find the vulnerabilities, and the penetration testing is something which requires a lot of work, and especially when it comes to the industrial control system, because some maturity in this field has come in the field of the IT systems, but I think we still have a lot to do in finding vulnerabilities in the industrial control systems, and that is another area where the focus should be there. And I'm happy that the C-DAC has tried to work that and try to organize a conference where all people can come and put their heads together. I would like to thank them once again for giving me this opportunity to interact with you and tell you what is the threat landscape which is available, and what are the kind of attacks which we are seeing, and then what are the areas where we find deficiencies in the or the cybersecurity related gaps which we notice in this critical information infrastructure protection are some of the very key areas are only the things which we are tried to highlight. Of course, we can go much deeper into a lot of these aspects, but I think the focus should be on developing indigenous products and developing indigenous skill sets. But before I end, one more thing which I would like to put again is that when it comes to tools versus the skills, I know that tools are important, but we find that finally the skilled resources are something which is the most critical, because a lot of these entities we find that a lot of advanced equipments and tools are all brought, but You need the right kind of a people and right kind of skill set to be able to configure these tools properly to find out the best results. So when it comes to tools versus manpower, our slight, my at least slight tilt is towards having the right kind of a manpower, because only when you have the right kind of manpower and skill set that you can get the right kind of tools and right kind of other things. So capacity building is an area where we actually need to focus a lot. With these few words, I look forward to a meaningful workshop, and I hope the participants all go around enriching from whatever is discussed in the workshop, and they also go with a resolve to do something in the long run to improve the critical infrastructure security. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. It was definitely an eye-opening session. Shri S.R. Narasimhan, CMD of Grid India, has an extensive experience in interconnection of regional grids leading to all India. Now we will begin with the second keynote session. Shri S.R. Narasimhan is the Chairman and Managing Director of Grid India. Prior to this assignment, he was Director, System Operation since November 2018 and responsible for reliable and economic operation of the All India electricity grid, which is also connected to the neighboring countries of Bhutan, Nepal, and Bangladesh. Shri S.R. Narasimhan has a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering and a master's in business administration in finance. He has over 3 decades of experience in power system operation spread across CEA, Power Grid, and POSOCO after an initial stint with BHEL. After a 23-year stint at Northern Regional Load Dispatch Center, New Delhi, and WRLDC, Mumbai, Shri Narasimhan joined National Load Dispatch Center in July 2011 and was later elevated as Executive Director, NLDC. He has extensive experience in interconnection of regional grids leading to a synchronous all India electricity grid. He has handled all facets of power system operation, ranging from operational planning, scheduling, real-time operation, and post-dispatch analysis, besides deployment of the necessary tools for visualization and situational awareness. He has also implemented several electricity market reforms, such as the availability-based tariff, interstate open access, day-ahead markets through power exchange, point of connection, method of transmission charges, sharing, frequency control ancillary services, security constrained economic dispatch, etc. Shri S.R. Narasimhan has contributed to several expert committees at the government and regulatory levels in different areas, ranging from system operation, grid integration of renewable energy resources, and optimization to institution building. He is a fellow of the Institutions of Engineers, India, senior member of IEEE, and a distinguished member of CIGRE. He was conferred with the IEEE PES Delhi Chapter Outstanding Engineer Award in 2019. He has published over 60 papers at the national and international level. He is passionate about making our energy systems more reliable, resilient, economic, and clean, along with a commitment to technical excellence and highest ethical standards. He has also been assigned the additional charge of post of Director, System Operation, as well as the Director, Human Resources by Ministry of Power. Shri Narasimhan assumed the charge of the post of Chairman and Managing Director, Grid India with effect from 25th March 2022. I welcome to hear from you the user perspective of the challenges faced. Sir, please.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that nice introduction. And once again, I would like to thank C-DAC for having me here as a keynote speaker. So I have a short presentation. Maybe I would discuss those as we go along. So let me first try sharing my screen. Are you able to see the screen, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So thank you. Actually, I am not a cyber security expert per se. I am basically a grid operations engineer, responsible. The reliability of electricity grid is something that is very close to my heart, and I've spent almost 35 years now in this area of grid operations. And in 2000, in the year 2000, the US National Academy of National Academy of Engineering, they conferred, they said that the electricity grid is one of the greatest inventions of mankind, in the 20th century. So that's the place in which where we stand, as far as the grid is concerned. Over the last many years, there have been discussions around what if we go off grid, with the reduction in prices of rooftop solar and battery energy storage systems. There is every possibility of any individual household going off the grid, and why do you have to live with ever rising energy and electricity bills? Why don't we go off the grid? But let me tell you, that's easier said than done. The reliability which one gets from the electricity grid, it's very hard to beat. And if at all you have to go off grid, either you might need to overinvest a lot and spill solar energy during some hours of the day, or you might end up having a power shortage for some hours of the day. It's very difficult, and it's the grid which enables economies of scale and utilizing the diversity from one household to the other. So you would still need to have grids, even if we have more and more of distributed energy generation resources like rooftop solar or and storage systems. So now, even when we talk about, so I'll be focusing more on the grid security and how cyber security is essentially a subset of that. Like if I look back on my 35 years of experience in power system operation, life was much simpler in the initial days. You had very few unknowns, and they were all knowns. All these unknowns were known. But gradually, as we have moved in the last 10 years, the amount of uncertainty which has crept in due to various reasons, uh, the known unknowns have actually become, we have more and more of unknown unknowns, and it is workshops like these which try to convert the unknown unknowns to at least known unknowns, and then mitigation we will discuss, and so that we are able to mitigate all those known unknowns. And even before I entered this area of power system operation, in the engineering colleges, when we were fond of reading, so there was one book by Arthur Haley. Arthur Haley used to write on every subject, and he used to really research into that particular area, be it hotels, be it the airport, be it the financial world, and power sector was also one where he extensively researched. And there was a book novel by the name Overload. So that when I look back, the critical infrastructure security, we already had that implanted in our minds through these books like Overload, where there were stories about how attempts were made to sabotage the electricity grid and how things can go wrong. So that was one. And moving closer, in 2007, we had an American engineer by the name George C. Loher, Loehr. So he had written a book known as Blackout. And this actually, he had based it on his extensive experience in 1965 when New York blackout took place. He had a chance to be part of the team which was analyzing that particular event. And in fact, that 1965 blackout was one which led to the formation of the North American Electric Reliability Corporation, now known as NERC. So that was the, when NERC came, they set about having reliability standards for the electricity grid operations. So this book also, in 2007, it was written. I happened to read it about 4-5 years back. So there, this cyber element, we all call, term it as spoofing of data and other things. So this book makes an interesting reading, where how spoofing and automatic clearing of the electricity markets, that can also result in insecure conditions in the grid. And when that is orchestrated with any sabotage action, then the consequences can be disastrous. So,
Hello, sir.
yes.
My one question here: how that spoofing on grid?
Can we take the questions later? Let me go through I'll respond to that later. Right. Spoofing part, Okay. I'll take the questions at the end if that's okay. Yeah.
That's fine, sir.
Yeah. So that was one thing which, always, so one has to, actually envisage what all can go wrong and have steps to prevent such a thing, So with that background, of course, Indian grid, as you all know, it's one of the world's largest synchronous grids. And if we talk about the national synchronous grid, it's the largest, okay, because all other countries, they usually operate 2 or 3 different grids, running at different frequencies, though they are connected by high voltage DC ties. But essentially, if we look at national synchronous grid, we are the largest. And in terms of generation, transmission, we are the 3rd largest. Solar and wind, we are fast catching up. 6th, hydro generation, and 9th in pumped storage. So all these numbers, while they look fantastic, that also places a lot of responsibility on all of us to ensure that this whole system remains secure. And if we talk about the transmission system, you can see the meshed system that we have, which connects virtually every corner of the country, and and we also have 3 power exchanges, a vibrant electricity market with a lot of trades happening. And one thing that I would like to mention here is that we have a certain philosophy, when we design the whole electricity grid, we usually go by the single largest contingency, in the planning horizon. When our grids were small, it was operated in a regional basis. That time we used to go by the single largest contingency, which usually meant one 220 kV or a 400 kV line going out, and the network, the whole system should remain secure. But as we have moved along and interconnected all the grids, what is the single largest contingency? That definition has changed, when we talk in the context of resilience and so many other aspects. The single largest contingency in the planning horizon and in the operating horizon could well be quite different. Like for instance, if I just take a spot here, on the map, if there is any substation which is connected by many lines, you could, if there is a flooding in that substation, that could essentially lead to loss of all the transmission lines connected to that substation, and while during actual operation, maybe the system would still have remained intact. But let's say if that outage continues for a prolonged period, let's say 10 days, 15 days, then some or the other constraints start surfacing. The point I'm trying to make is each hour of the power system operation is different. Each 8760 hours in a year has a different operating pattern. So while you may not seemingly face a constraint at one point of time, but maybe in some other hours in a different season, you would end up having constraints, and so this is something, the single largest contingency is something. So for very large events, we generally try to have defense mechanisms in place. We call it system protection schemes to ensure that the grid by and large remains intact and a disturbance in one part of the country doesn't lead to problems in other parts. So that's the main challenge. So all this, like in cyber security, um, we talk about increasing the surface area of the attack. So that's something which generally has to be avoided in terms of ports and so many other things. But the moment we have a large grid, what you're essentially having is an increased surface area. So you need to prepare for all the possible contingencies that can happen, and which can have a large long-term impact on the reliability of the electricity grid. So now coming to the recent last 7-8 years, the wind and solar, that's something which that has brought about a sea change in the operation of grids. You'll find that most of our wind and solar, they are essentially concentrated in the southern and western parts of the country. Okay, and with wind and solar, we are having a different type of problem. They are essentially power electronic based devices, and they behave quite differently than a conventional generator. So that's where the Central Electricity Authority, the technical standards for connectivity to the grid, they become very important. How does the solar park or a wind farm behave in case of a fault in the transmission system? So we have been experiencing some problems, in the last about 1 year. We have had some incidents of large solar parks in Rajasthan going out, and though the system has remained by and large stable, there's no problem as far as the grid is concerned. But then all these problems, they've been analyzed and traced to inverter level of the processes that we have. You'll find that the RE sector, the renewable energy sector, operates on a very different set of systems and processes. The developer who has possibly come through competitive bidding would essentially be a financial investor. He would hardly know anything, about the technical capabilities of the wind park, wind farm, or solar park. They would depend on the inverter manufacturer or the wind turbine manufacturer and the power plant controllers, the different set of vendors for each type of equipment, and that's when we were discussing this change in settings of the inverters. That's when we get into all these complexities. And with so much of renewable, today we have close to 85 gigawatt of wind and solar. So just imagine if you had to make any settings in any of the inverters, there could be various ways of doing it. One service engineer would need to go to all these places, and through his laptop, they would need to change the settings, or one could also do it through remotely. But then the moment you start allowing a remote access, then all these issues of cyber security and all, they become very important. So wind and solar, it's something that we have kept on our radar, because from the grid security perspective and the cyber security perspective, they would play a very important role. Just actually the 3 to 4 hours of sunshine, during that time, one has to be very careful that we cannot afford loss of any solar generation during that time, either due to a problem in the transmission system or through cyber generally. So these are some of the things. That's why we have been ensuring that all these equipment, they follow the CA technical standards and the compliance monitoring is strengthened, so that becomes very important when we're talking about wind and solar, and tomorrow we would have battery energy storage systems also, which would have this kind of behavior. So coming to the control center, of course, we have our IT systems in place, we have our OT systems in place, and other systems like automatic meter reading, inter RLDC data exchange, and power exchange also. We also share a lot of data to and fro from the power exchanges. So while this OT system of SCADA, the phasor measurement units, and the renewable energy management center, that's well known, but there are a lot of other areas, like web-based energy scheduling. Energy scheduling is a near real-time application, but it's generally outside the OT system, but it exchanges a lot of data with our OT system, so that's where any outage in the scheduling system would also impact, like it would put some amount of confusion across the entire set of market players. If the schedules are not getting updated due to any reason, then that can lead to a potential problem. And websites, the RLDC websites and National Load Dispatch Center websites, they are accessed by users all over the world, and they take a large number of hits, and all are reporting systems. And similarly on the automatic meter reading and power exchange also, if there is any disruption of communication or between the power exchange and the load dispatch center, that also could lead to some amount of disruption in the scheduling process. So we have a lot of redundancies built in, but at the same time, this aspect, any failure of any system, that can lead to consequences, and if you're talking about the renewable energy management center, there also we interact with all the forecast service providers, again, that also is through internet, and so we need very secure systems, and all the security that is required is put into place. But definitely any disruption of any information flow, that can lead to some amount of confusion amongst the market players. Then similarly, we have a lot of other offline applications like outage planning, post facto analysis, and open access. We are responsible for administering the open access at the interstate level, metering and accounting, fees and charges, SCADA. So a lot of offline applications are also there. And we also use several software like PSSC or the electromagnetic transient. For fault analysis, we use the wide area measurement system. So all these systems, they are quite key, and it's important that they are made cyber resilient also. While this may not impact the reliability of the electric grid immediately, but any loss of any data at the control center can lead to some amount of confusion. And we have definitely other backups also. We have the state load dispatch centers also. So if one RLDC is unable to monitor a certain section of the network, but definitely on the other side, the other regional load dispatch center is able to monitor, and we are ensuring that there is no threat to the security of the system. And then ancillary services is another area, like when I go back to this slide, the only control that we have, currently at the control center, we are not operating any circuit breakers. Okay, the only controls that we have is our automatic generation control. From our OT system, signals go to different power plants for regulating the generation up or down. So AGC is the only control that we have we are not doing any switching. Switching is essentially done by the transmission operators. The transmission operators also, they have their own systems from where they do either remote switching or it could be local switching. So as far as the grid security is concerned, we are more worried about any switching actions leading to a stability problem. The AGC is a very slow type of control. Signals are sent every 4 seconds to the power plant, and finally it lands in the power plant distributed control system. So there again, the ramp rate, everything is checked. You can't have a situation where the AGC tells the plant to double the generation instantaneously. It won't happen. It's a slow control. It's a proportional integral control. So as far as the grid security is concerned, it's not going to impact the security of the grid. So we would have, going forward, there will be many areas which we need to, like we are talking about going for resource adequacy studies. So there we might need to house lot of software on the cloud also. Like many of the optimization software, it is also available as a service located in the cloud. So cloud services would also become important. And then we currently don't have blockchain applications, but there again, very soon, with so much of renewable purchase obligation monitoring, with renewable energy certificates, with e-certs and the carbon market. So blockchain is one area where lot of interactions would be taking place with a different set of market players and aggregators. And of course, physical security is also very important. And so for that, the building management systems and other aspects, they also need to be in place. So we are putting together all of that. And all the standard security infrastructure and administration, all the standard protocol that is there, that we are employing. I'll not dwell much on all this. I'm sure you would have many sessions from many other speakers in this particular workshop. But coming to what I'm actually concerned is the resilience part. Like when we talk about resilience, so it's the ability of the system to bounce back. If anything were to go wrong, resilience, it recognizes that no system is infallible. You, even if you fall, you must be able to quickly get back to normalcy. That's very important. And if you talk about the context of electricity grids, we have a number of events like floods and cyclones, which happen all, every year virtually. And if you look at this cyclone Tote, this happened on the western coast. Western coast of India, traditionally, it hasn't had very severe cyclones. But Tote, which happened in May 2021, this led to a lot of disruptions of the electricity infrastructure on the western part. So I mentioned about all our wind and solar resources being concentrated in the western part and southern part of the country. So this is possibly an area where we need to really look at all the systems that we put in place, the transmission network, the solar parks. They should all be capable of withstanding these severe weather events also. Like we call it low probability, high impact events. And Tote was one. When if you look at the May 2021, it was also the second wave of the pandemic that we had. And in Grid India, we were closely monitoring supplies to all the oxygen plants. We had flagged about 73 oxygen plants in the country because April and May 21, you would recall, there was a severe shortage of oxygen for the patients. And any disruption in supply to those oxygen plants would have set back. Even a 1 minute interruption puts back the supply by 3 to 4 hours. So we didn't, so we were monitoring that. Then cyber security was also an issue with remote working and all that. So you have essentially 3 contingencies in one stroke. You have a pandemic on one side, you have cyber security, and you also have a severe weather event, and the control center has to handle all of that, So this is a great challenge. And so resilience, low impact, low probability, high impact events, they become very important. And if we talk about the electricity sector, we have, like we had Charles Concordia, a famous power system engineer. He said, that another aspect of robustness can be illustrated by the fact that a weaker system that has a well-tested plan for emergency procedures and for restoration may be more reliable than a stronger system with no such plan. Okay, so we have experienced this in our regional grids also. Earlier the northeastern region, it used to be a very weak transmission system, and so any tripping it led to one pocket of the region going under blackout, but they could come back very fast because all their restoration emergency drills, they were very much, they could get activated in no time, and within an hour they could put back the system. And the same thing we have tried to extend to other parts of the country. Like for instance, every year we do a mock trial, of a black start exercise. So this is a remote hydro power plant in Himachal Pradesh. So all this shaded area, we actually black out a small portion, of the grid with advanced announcements and all that. And we try to see that we are actually able to start this hydropower unit, extend power supply to the load here, and then put back, synchronize it back to rest of the grid. So all the systems and processes at each of these stations. So this we do every year, for all the hydropower plants. So we are quite confident that if things go wrong, our systems are in place and we will be able to restore the system quickly, and that gives us confidence, all these mock black start drills. Now, but there's always one challenge, all this black start exercises, they have one assumption, that you can communicate with all the agencies, So I think the worst kind of disaster which one could imagine, can you write down a black start process if there is no communication? If this power plant is not able to communicate with this substation, and this substation is not able to communicate with this, and they in turn are not able to communicate with the load dispatch center, can you still put back the system? This problem was posed to me, almost 2 decades back by one of Mr. Bhanubhushan, who was the director system operation in Power Grid. And he used to always say that, can you just through standing instructions, can you restore the grid? So that's something, that challenge is something, with so much of concerns around cyber security, communication system. So it will be really a challenge for us to write a procedure, where there's no communication and still you should be able to restore the system. That's the challenge. And so that's where, so while on the electricity side, we are relatively confident, we have these mock drills and everything. And similarly on the cyber side, we do have a cyber crisis management plan, and that talks about certain how you would go about restoring the system should there be any problem. But definitely we would need more and more of mock drills, to really get more confidence. Just as we have the confidence for the electricity network, similar confidence we need to have for our cyber crisis management plan, and that's when if you look at practices elsewhere, the NERC, they host a biennial grid security exercise known as GridX, and 6 such exercises they've conducted so far, and you can find out the lessons learned report on the link that I've shared. And so maybe when this workshop, we could also discuss some of such exercises, whether they could be done in the Indian context also, so that would give us more confidence, because as I mentioned in the opening itself, our concern is okay. And so cybersecurity should ensure that the grid remains secure, So we need similar grid security exercises on the cyber side also. And maybe I would look forward to ideas on this, and we could definitely partner with any of the agencies, C-DAC and other agencies, in designing such an exercise for the Indian context. So
Thank you, sir, for gracing the event with your presence and sharing your experience and knowledge with us. Thank you so much for covering the entire gamut of Indian power system and providing insights into present as well as future. We will now welcome the participants for the questions.
Yeah,
And
I just had to answer one question that was raised in the beginning on the spoofing part, So essentially on that, the New York, yeah, are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir.
So there was one question in the beginning about how spoofing was done, on the, so it was basically the New York ISO, they're one of the systems. So it's a fictional account, So they have a system where all the transfer capability, those values are updated periodically, after the simulation studies, all the capability of the network that is uploaded there. And based on those capabilities, all the market players can apply for open access and other such things, and so the moment you fill a very high value slowly, and those transactions get approved, and so definitely generator outside New York will be able to supply power to a consumer in New York, and that could lead to a potential loading of the transmission system. And they also had a situation where all the relays, the protective relays, their settings could be changed remotely, so that was that kind of very unusual. So the first time I had got to read such a, interesting.
Thank you, sir. If there are more questions, the participants can unmute themselves and ask their doubts and questions if they want.
Thank you so much. This is Tulika here, Professor Narasimhan, Dr. Narasimhan. The question here was a little more towards the purpose that this workshop is being organized, is to understand whether there's a possibility of bringing out a set of practices and principles according to the sector, each sector that exists, and especially the critical sectors that currently have been identified. And we have the NCI-IPC team with us. In the sense, can we put out some kind of a best practices in terms of saying, let's have a red teaming, blue teaming exercise, that's A, B, for a setup of this capacity and for this sector, this is the kind of a few regular interval scenarios that can be created. What would be a very good cyber range that could be developed in the country, or the possibility of creating a cyber range at all is possible or not possible. We know that the power sector is really coming up with the teams are really coming up at doing good work, but then we are also looking at some kind of a some kind of a framework that could that could come out at the end of these series of workshops. I'll not say that one workshop would ever be will suffice for such a discussion and end objective. But if we really want to work at a national scale, and if we really want to look at all the three fulcrums of standards, of best practices, and of the cyber crisis management plan, together we could then set up some kind of security posturing for the critical sectors. Do you see any sense in what I'm saying, or is it a little too
Yeah.
much to bite?
No, no, thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Tulika Pandey. In fact, as far as Grid India is concerned, we are also the CERT grid operation, and so all these state load dispatch centers, RLDC and NLDC, so definitely it all comes under CERT grid operation, and there we have actually tried to do an extensive survey of all the load dispatch centers. Where do they stand in terms of the infrastructure, and what are all the real building blocks that they actually need to put in place? We term it, I think, the maturity model. So that we have shared our the questionnaire, the detailed survey that was there. We have shared it with NCIPC also, and looking forward for their insights also, how we can improve this. So definitely we can come out with a set of best practices for at least the control center portion, and similarly we also have a cert for transmission and a cert for thermal and hydro generation, as well as for distribution. So since the electricity infrastructure itself is so vast, I'm not very sure whether one single agency will be able to do justice for all the sectors. But definitely, as far as control centers are concerned, that is the load dispatch center at the state, region, and national, there definitely we can interact further and try to come out with such on best practices and what all we need, what type of drills that we need to have in place.
And you did not answer for the cyber range that I was discussing about, because I personally feel that in today's world, the experience is becoming a core form of learning than mere tabletop exercises. And the cyber ranges, if not built appropriately, may not serve the purpose. And I do understand that they will be not easy to make, and they'll be really complex if we want to achieve what we want to. However, I feel if we get all the stakeholders on board and we together attempt and have an objective of having a cyber range for the agencies to really experiment, and then improve their security posture or their posturing of their organization, somewhere I feel that that has now become an essential requirement. Second, you have mentioned that you are engaging with the user agencies and with the NCIPC. Do you also see a possible participation from the private sector? Do you see that there could be a possible alignment and an alliance that we could build, such that these initiatives could really be, not become a triple task on the shoulders of a single person within the organization that is being run by him? So I personally feel that we now need to start to build a trust model of our stakeholders as our partners, and then start to explore a possible model for a continued what do you say, audit or a testing of how we are performing and where we could go wrong. Because today what we see is this cyber access to things have become both a bane and a boon for us, and therefore we need something of this kind as an understanding. And what better forum than this to really start to discuss and maybe arrive at some kind of an understanding in the near future?
Yeah, thank you. In fact, I think private sector definitely, like, we have been doing some pilots at the different control centers on different concepts. And even on the security operations center, definitely without some participation from the private sector, it's really difficult to go otherwise. So definitely private sector initiative is also welcome, and it's definitely, and we are engaging with them also.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. If there are no questions, we can begin with the first technical session of the workshop. Shri B.S. Bindu Madhav, Senior Director and Scientist Chief, C-DAC Bengaluru, is going to present the first technical session of the workshop on critical infrastructure security.
Visible? So good evening, one and all present here. I think the workshop started well with the inauguration and the stalwarts giving the directions for this workshop, how this thing should go forward, and ably supported by the two keynote speakers. One is mostly concentrating on the critical information infrastructure security, and the other speaker on the infrastructure security. So that was a good beginning. But I will try to start. Try to speak on the critical infrastructure security challenges and roadmap. Why I call this roadmap? Because already C-DAC Bangalore has been working in this particular area, especially in the transmission sector, trying to sort of come out with the solutions, tools, and testbed. So to start with, I think CMD Grid India presented his diagram was very good, which my thing also will look similar in the next thing. So as a preamble, I just wanted to mention there are 16 critical infrastructure sectors. So as it has been documented, and out of which NCI-IPC also mentioned grouping them into 6 groups. So all critical infrastructure or cyber physical systems. So I think that was very clearly sort of as a thing which we have to look into, because one is the cyber layer, the other one is the physical layer. So how best or how they are coupled together, that becomes an important aspect. And as far as the standards which concern to this particular sector is mostly driven by industry standard 5.5 plus I have put, because I think the industry standard 6 also is already ready. I think Dr. Tulika Pandey, our MeitY Senior Director, also mentioned about the model and what are the things which has to be followed. There is something called a cybersecurity capability maturity model, which is done, and it has got some parameters to be captured, and then we should be able to sort of figure out what is the current status and how do we take it forward. And all these particular this particular sector is sort of measured on what is the impact on the socio-economic impact. So that these are the things which are looked at. When it comes to the attack on the critical infrastructure, it has doubled in year 2022. This is the information available on all the reports which has been published worldwide, and also it is the same in India also. So actually the subsequent discussion, even though there are 16 critical infrastructure sectors, some are dependent and the other are independent of certain things. So throughout the next, whatever the thing I sort of talk will be mostly focusing on the energy sector. So this is how the industry 5.0 looks like. I think some people talk about industry 4.0 still, but of course, with the cognitive systems coming into this particular space and trying to sort of have intelligent controls and other things, I think industry 5.0 is already in place, and 6.0 is being also discussed. This is the same diagram as CMD Grid India had put. If you see all the 16 critical infrastructures has been mentioned in this, and in the center, it is the power sector which is there. So I normally say that this happens to be the lifeline of the complete systems, and that's how it becomes very critical. And in the critical infrastructure space, the power sector becomes very critical. And in critical power sector, transmission becomes at most important. That's how we are seeing the CMD talking about blackout and grey out. He is not talking about load shedding. So that is the thing, how it becomes very important. So in order to sort of show this, how some decades back the infrastructures were there, and how currently these things are moving. And that's how it becomes very important. The cyber security becomes important in that cyber physical system space. So if you see the two infrastructures, these are all two independent infrastructures which is there. Suppose you take power sector, there is a power system, a network, and there is a cyber network. So as over a period of time, it has so happened that these two things have started coming together. So these two things coming together, that's how it becomes very complex. And if you see from the right to the left, the data movement, so the data movement also keeps growing in volumes. So that's how the computational power increases. And on the right side, there are devices where you render the services to the end stakeholder. That's how the whole gamut of the thing today calls for what is called as high performance computing for modeling and simulation. And then subsequently, the data which is being collated is rendered on small form factor devices, that is mobile and laptops and handheld devices. So when it comes to the network space, I think in the critical infrastructure, there is something called as a field network, and then there's a process net, and there's a corporate. So with all these things being there, and rest assured that the control stops at the supervisory control and data acquisition system, that is the SCADA, which forms the basic building block of any control system or a critical infrastructure space. I'm not talking about critical information infrastructure. I'm talking only about the critical infrastructure space. So that's how this is a NIST. This particular architecture is available on the NIST, and this is called as the defense in depth architecture, which is there. Such that when there is an attack, you are supposed to arrest it at the closest thing, whichever is possible, and you are supposed to go to a fail-safe condition. So these are some of the things, ground rules for the control system space. So these security becomes an automatic thing by having some sort of isolation and having minimal entry points into this particular space. When it comes to the defense in depth areas, so you have to define the network and the infrastructure. So there is a backbone, and of late the wireless networks have started coming into the into the controls, the critical infrastructure space and the system interconnections. So there'll be a lot of defending what you have to do on the enclave, that is the perimeter boundary. Currently, there is a lot of multi-level security which is being looked at. Of course, the IT portion becomes at the back end, since there is a lot of dependency on the IT portion and interconnect with the control system. So that's where the challenges are increasing in more. When it comes to the supporting infrastructure, of course, in order to have the information security built in, you should have some sort of a key management infrastructure. And then subsequently, you should have some detect and respond sort of thing, where I think everybody spoke about the SOC, the Security Operation Control Center. So this particular model is sort of mentioned in the information assurance technical framework. So that's how this defense in depth architecture is mostly looked into the space of critical infrastructure. Of course, these are some general things. There are internal and external threats, malicious attacks. I think NCIPC DG was mentioning. So these were some of the attacks which we can classify, whatever the things, malicious attacks, targeted attacks, and some sophisticated attacks also. And disgruntled employee, it can be intentional, unintentional things happening. And there can be some sort of a virus which can be undirected attack, which is some sort of a virus which is sitting and it does nothing. Unintentional incidents, some sort of a configuration problem where the skill set, it was mentioned, the skilled manpower not handling these particular tools and systems. So before I come here, this is the security framework which has got 3 orthogonal coordinates. If you see, there is a cyber, physical, and cyber physical and physical. That's how the whole thing is. So the controls, whatever is available, should be more or less on the space of the physical network, where a fault becomes an incidence. And this might be because of some issues on the control network. But when the cyber layer comes into the picture, then the attacks becomes very important, and how this attacks takes over the control. So that is another thing which has to be looked at. Vulnerabilities and threats. So these are the basic forms of the security concern which is there. And I think everybody aired that this critical infrastructure security is very, very essential and required. That is only because of the risk and the impacts which are more. If you see the cyber-based attacks which are there, and this is a part of the IEEE presentation made by one of the renowned researcher. So the protocol attacks, routing attacks, intrusion detection, malwares, denial of service, and insider attacks. So these are some of the things which has to be looked into the space. Now, when it comes to the cyber physical system space, there are 3 things in the security which has to be concerned. One is the infrastructure security, the other one is the information security, the third one is the application security. So this is a flowchart where you sort of do some sort of a exercise and try to get what is the impact which is there. So this can be done iteratively, and which can give the input to the application security, infrastructure security for the risk mitigation. So that's how the thing becomes an important model. The risk, there is a formula, threat into vulnerability and impact. That's how you are going to look into the thing. So continuous monitoring of this particular incidences becomes very important. So, and then do a online impact analysis, and then subsequently see whether you have to have a devise a defense mechanism, or you can live with whatever the incidents which is there. So that's how it becomes a system vulnerability or scenario vulnerability or an access point vulnerability. This is a hierarchical model which has to be looked at. Like I told, the cybersecurity capability maturity model, these are the domains against which we might have to do some sort of assessment. So risk management, and then asset change and configuration management. I think this also was very much spoken about. For the access, how do you identify and do an access management? Threat and vulnerability management, that also becomes important. Situational awareness is one thing which has to be contexted and then subsequently take a decision. And there is something called as event incident response continuity of operations, how the responses. The other one is the workforce management. This is where I think NCIPP DG also told it is not the sophisticated tools which are there, but you should be able to sort of use it in the right way. And the integration and the risk management of the third-party tools which comes into the picture, and the cybersecurity architecture and posture, and cybersecurity program management. These are some of the 10 space, this one, which you might have to score and have some sort of information. This can be done iteratively and at some periodicity. Now, these were some of the background things which was there required. And when it comes to what is there and what we intend to do going forward and what has to be done on the technology space, of course, it should be ably supported by the policy, and it should be supported by the legal framework, the policy framework and the legal framework. And when it comes to technology, how do we sort of migrate into what is the percentage of control do we have on the cyber equipments which are spaced in our physical networks? So for that, I think everybody told that indigenous development has to take place. So if so, how to start and where to start becomes a very important thing. So as far as the security requirements in any of these things comes, is at the device level security, advanced cryptography and key management, system and subsystem level security, network security, for which I am talking about smart grid because like I told initially only, I'll try to sort of focus more on the power sector, which we are doing a lot of things in this particular space. So at the device level security, what is required is to have a cost-effective, high tamper-resistant and survivable device architecture, because this becomes very important. Like I think we were already telling that if we have got a SOC also, we should be knowing that what is there below, what is the cyber source, which is or the data source which is available or visible to the SOC. That becomes very important. So you should have some sort of a good cost-effective and high tamper-resistant sort of thing, device architecture. So it becomes very important. So it starts from having your own indigenous processor going into this particular controller, which is going to be an important factor, which is very close to the control equipment. The second one is to have an intrusion detection and embedded processor, because the IEDs, what we call the intelligent electronic devices, which can be a sensor, which is intelligent, or it can be a controller, which is hanging around on a network, and it takes an important decision. And the second one is the firmware updates, which takes place, and the spoofing remote devices, which are all there. So I think there was a question asked on the spoofing by somebody. So I think on the power grid side, there was internationally, there was a GPS spoofing attack which has taken place. And as far as the CV is concerned, I think it was mapped to 2016-7406 to 9, last digit. So these was some of the things which were there. So in order to sort of have this, why I'm raising this particular thing here is the IED can be a PMU, the phasor measurement unit, where the GPS becomes an important component. So any attack on this GPS thing becomes vulnerable, and there can be a lot of catastrophic which can take place. As far as the cryptography and key management side, you should have some sort of a privacy enhanced cryptographic algorithms, which has to be looked at, because mostly the protocols in this particular sector is ciphertext based protocols. So we might have to do some sort of hardening. And when it comes to the cryptographic in network aggression schemes, it is one-to-many or one-to-one sort of things where the communication gets connected. Why I had put this particular point is today we are in the space of discussions on 5G becoming a reality in the power sector. So how does that particular 5G, when it becomes a reality, how do you handle this, whatever the limitations or the protocols which are ciphertext based, how do we do some sort of a hardening? So the fabric for the communication, when it migrates to 5G, we might have to look at the concerns which matters. And when it comes to the access control, I think the information security, that's what I was trying to say. It is attribute based encryption which is normally used. So that I think the earlier speaker also told the trusted system or a trusted platform. So in order to arrive at that particular thing, we might have to use the attribute based encryption and some sort of have a attribute based trusted entity distribution attributes also should be there. And we should be able to predict the keys to the user. Some sort of a challenge response type of this one we might have to sort of implement. Of course, since we are doing in the initial phase of the configuration, so we will have some sort of a time constraint will not be there because we are still in the configuration mode sort of thing. Once it goes live, I think we will not be able to do this particular thing. And then the interoperability of the online connectivities. So definitely multi-protocol systems should be able to co-locate, coexist, and collaborate. So that's how the thing becomes important. The next is the identity-based public key cryptography. So this becomes important for, like I was mentioning earlier, if we have to do some sort of a PKI-based authentication, so we might have to look into this particular space. Now coming to the systems and subsystem level security. So we might have to look into the architecture for bounded recovery and reaction, because in I think it was very clearly mentioned, if there is a blackout or a gray out, the immediate recovery of the system becomes very important. So we might have to sort of look at how to sort of, if there is an anomaly which is detected, and how we are going to sort of position with the data position and regenerating the lost capability. So how do you sort of come to a fail-safe condition first? And you should be able to sort of restart with the checkpointing sort of thing from where you are left. So that becomes an important thing. The other thing which was also mentioned in the previous speaker is the real-time security. How we'll be able to sort of increasingly rely on the real-time systems for advanced controls. So even though in the at least the general grid India, we are not having much control, but there are possibilities of the controls being coming into the picture over a period of time. So this meets the requirement of the application with a specific response time. So that is a thing what we have to look into. And this is a very important thing, because nowhere we get a green field saying that this is the days technologies which are put into use. So we have to co-live with the legacy system, and we might have to integrate with the legacy system, which might be a generation old or many generation old. So we have to, so cybersecurity becomes at most complex in this particular scenario to look into this particular space. I think resiliency management and decision support system is at most important. So redundancies are there at the cyber layer, and the there are certain places where the critical physical layer also there is redundancy, but how do we build in the resiliency as a whole? So that becomes an important thing, and how this particular threat response is escalated to sort of a place where you can do a system resiliency or a maintenance of the complete system. The other thing is, how do we sort of look into the composition of mechanisms, efficient way of doing the thing? This is basically if there are interdependent critical infrastructures which has to be sort of talking to each other through a common information or a critical information infrastructure space. So this becomes an important thing. Of course, the risk assessment and management, I think it is a continuous thing, and a tool has to be developed based on the risk and the window at which we will be able to sort of take some decisions. So there is a lot of research happening in this particular case. The risk modeling, assessment and management, and risk modeling itself is a big research area which people are working on. The other thing is the advanced attack analysis. This is basically till I think some 4 or 5 years back, we were talking about a single attack taking place on this one, and we were trying to sort of detect and do a response for that particular thing. But today, people are talking about coordinated attack. So in that particular space, it becomes at most complex. How do we handle, and what are the tools and methodologies to be devised to look into this vector, the attack vector? And when it comes to the, so we were also trying to look into the integration of mostly the available, commercially available of the shelf available systems will be integrated in the network. So we might have to sort of do some sort of a cleanup and make sure that there are no software and the ports which are unwanted, which is there in this particular space. So how do you sort of have a controlled environment? It becomes important. And internet usage in this particular critical infrastructure area becomes important, and that's how we might have to look into this particular space and see that how what is the information flow on the internet and in the bidirectional, which has to be looked into. So with the protocols emerging and primarily becoming more and more closer and open, and which is layered on TCP/IP. So the vulnerability at most also it increases, and we might have to do some sort of a hardening. So for doing hardening, basically for the legacy system, we might have to have a different approach. And for the latest and the current systems, we might have to have a different approach. So the other one is, I think the SOC was spoken on the security in this space. So we might have to do a surveillance of the system which is under operations. So on the process net, there might be, if at all, if the command has to be passed from an MMI to the circuit breaker at the field, so you might have to have some sort of a denial of service resiliency built in, because if you push a button, if it doesn't reflect on the field, then it can lead to a catastrophe. So that's how we might have to look at whether it is an automated thing, or if you take the system on manual, you should be able to sort of push the button from the MMI. So the resiliency should be built in and make sure that the denial of service is sort of not there. So whatever the requirements I told, and this is the architecture at which C-DAC we are having a test bed, which is based on the live virtual and control construct sort of model. And we can have a system in loop, we can have physical system in loop, we can have the field bus in loop, or the process bus in loop, process net in loop, and we should be able to sort of have the mechanisms, the attack vectors, the red team and the blue team should be able to sort of look into this particular space. So this is the LVC architecture-based test bed, which is some sort of a one generation behind what today people are talking about, what is called as digital twins. So this particular thing, next it will lead to a digital twin where the physical network becomes part and parcel of the thing, and we should be able to collaboratively operate both the data model as well as the physical model. So this is in brief what I was just trying to say. Information security, of course, confidentiality, integrity, availability, authentication, non-reputation has to be there for information security. And how do you achieve that particular thing? It is through encryption, decryption, digital signature. That's what I was trying to say, PKI, or a message authentication code, or public key infrastructure. So it can be either a digital infrastructure, a digital signature, or a PKI-based system. When it comes to the infrastructure security, these are some of the things which are in place: routers, DNS servers, links, internet protocols, and service availability. So how do you sort of achieve the security? This one by having firewalls, intrusion detection, secure protocol, authentication protocol, attack attribution, and secure servers. So these are the means at which we can achieve the security, cyber security on the infrastructure. This is an area where a lot of things has to be looked at, and we have started looking in some of the aspects, but not all the thing. So if you see in the application space, specifically the generation control applications, transmission control application, distribution control application, and there is a lot of training which is happening on the energy sector. So you need a real-time energy market which has to be there as an application. How do you see that these applications which are already existing, how to make it sort of attack proof? So you should have attack resilience control algorithms, model-based algorithms with anomaly detection as well as intrusion tolerance. And you should do a bad data elimination, and risk modeling and mitigation becomes an important thing. So in just the cyber physical system, which includes both the physical layer as well as the cyber layer, and whatever the air gap between these two or minimizing, we should be able to sort of address using these three security solutions. Now, basically, one more point which I wanted to mention is cybersecurity is a moving target. So whatever the solution or the problem solution which is available today might not work tomorrow. So because it's a moving target. So there is a approach, twofold approach, which has been sort of looked at. I think this is also, there's a lot of research happening in this particular field. So to have a continuous improvement. So it is a moving target. So continuously you improve your tools and other things which comes into the picture. That is continuous improvement in the existing processes. And then you should ensure the cyber hygiene. You should continue, and you should continue threat monitoring and compliance with standards and risk management. And then subsequently, you should have another approach, which you are seeing these curves, which will sort of have a hyperbola and parabola sort of thing. So you should be able to have a disruptive thing also, which gets into the next generation technology, built-in security and resiliency, self-healing networks, intelligent and autonomous sensing and mitigation, moving target defenses. So this becomes an important thing. So the approach should be in this particular field. So why I just presented this particular holistically is to say that C-DAC Bangalore is working in this particular field, and we have got some solutions already field tested, and we would like to sort of have our LVC testbed made available for the researchers and the practitioners for doing some experimentation and trying to look at the current with respect to the current attacks which are there. So this is what I just wanted to sort of in brief try to mention. And I thank the people for giving me this opportunity. And if there is any questions, I can take. A detailed presentation on all the space, whatever I have mentioned, will be following. So, and what is available with us as on today will be sort of mentioned.
The participants can unmute themselves for asking the questions, or they can put up in the chat box whatever is feasible for them.
Hello, sir. I have one question. Hello.
Yeah.
Sir, I just want a question that you talk about implementing the security in the CII. So I just want to ask, what about the how to implement the security in the legacy system, which is suppose a decade old or something like that. So how can we ensure some sort of security, a minimum level of security in those systems? Because in that systems are totally isolated. They are standalone systems, and but we have to declare that as CII because those systems are very critical to us. So how can we ensure a minimum level of security, because those systems are totally isolated and we don't have any security device also like firewalls or intrusion prevention system. We don't have anything there. So if suppose if vulnerabilities or a malware attack happen through USB ports, like it's happened in the stucknets, so how can we ensure a minimum level of security in those systems?
Yeah, I think this is a good question, but I thought in my talk, I just mentioned for co-living with the legacy system. One is if it is isolated, you should make sure that it is having a cyber hygiene, right? Cyber hygiene means, since you mentioned structnet, you should be able to sort of have a controlled mechanism so that nothing untoward incident takes place. So that is one thing. The other thing is, if you want to communicate with that isolated system, then you might have to have some mechanism, whether you want to have bidirectional communication or a unidirectional communication. That is, that system sending you some information, or you want to sort of push some information to that system also. So all these things matter. So if you want to have a unidirectional communication, there are devices called data diodes, which will have a unidirectional link, which you can communicate. And also you can harden if you want through some encryption mechanism, because anyway you have to go on some communication channel. So you can do an encryption.
Okay, sir, but right now we doesn't have anything on those systems, but we want something should be there. So should we go for an offline antivirus type of system in the workstation there?
No, those are all basic things which has to be there. There should be an antivirus on that particular system. If it is a Windows, MS Windows, sort of Microsoft Windows based system, it should have an antivirus. If it is Linux or Unix based system, you should be trying to make some sort of a lightweight thing, which will only do that particular functions which they are supposed to do. You should have some configuration management done.
Okay, sir. But so until unless we are not revamping those systems or connecting.
Revamping is one of I'm trying to say that if it coexists or co-lives, revamping is the next thing. When you go to revamping, you'll go with some currently available antivirus systems which will be there and other things, right?
Okay,
I'm
sir.
talking about how to sort of harden the system, what is there.
Yes. Hi, this is Nazir with you.
I'm not able to hear.
Hi, this is Nazir with you.
Yeah.
Am I audible? Yes, sir. I'm. That is very nice that I got your lecture, but I have a questions from infrastructure security.
Yeah.
There we come to know that at the network level, we are going to deploy the firewalls, and obviously those are next generation firewalls, I believe, which have a security profiles. Now, question is that, like, if we select the top leader vendor, firewalls like Cisco or FortiGate, whatever it is. The question is, we are missing some kind of exploitation database or antivirus database on this firewall. If I deploy the Cisco ASA or some kind of vendor's firewalls, then I miss the database. Obviously, in some kind of attacks, those exploitation will be get bypassed at the network level and it will hit to the application. So in this case, how can I ensure that my firmware or my device is not missing some kind of exploitation database, and how can I overcome with that? So as long as when I check your presentation over the infrastructure, yeah, that is a pretty cool lockdown you did on that topology. But what about the missing databases, antivirus databases, and how can I sense that I don't have to miss any kind of vulnerabilities over that device?
No, actually, these things can be done to surveillance, right? You should be able to sort of do some sort of a packet capture at the network layer, and you should be able to see the anomaly. So for that, you might have to do some baselining, saying that without this thing and with this thing, how does it look like? So you have to do a baselining and then try to model on and come out with the anomaly detection.
Perfect. Perfect. That is a good idea. So now the question is like the streaming traffic. As long as while I'm monitoring the streaming traffic, as long as I enable the IPS sensor, that you also give one option that embedded sensor also work in the completely you are directing to the hardware sensors. But in the concept of virtualization, it might be the same as much as possible. But for the live streaming, that particular anomaly will not be get detected, right, if the database is not updated. So that is the tuning. But anyhow, I got the answer that
no, basically you have to have some reference, right? Yeah. Some signature you should have. No magic can happen, right? So there should be a signature. Either you do a baselining and make that as a signature, and against that you see the anomaly, right? And you sort of keep on updating this so that you are current. That's what I told. Security is today's solution doesn't work tomorrow, or might be in the next 1 hour down the line it might not work.
Yes,
it's a moving target. Okay.
So you are referring to do the more research on the new vulnerabilities and new exploitations.
No, see, as a practitioner, you are a practitioner or a researcher?
I'm doing my MTech on cybersecurity, sir. I'm both like practitioner.
Okay. So what you do is you do a traffic analysis and try to sort of do an anomaly detection. That's it.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
No, because there are some more speakers, so I just want them to talk. It is hardcore, their hard work which they have done, and they will like to present.
Perfect. Thank you.
I'll answer them. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks.
So the question is read.
I'll answer them. Reply. Go on next.
Is read. Thank you, sir, for taking us through the journey of cyber physical system and roadmap on CI security. Before moving on to the next section, I would like to request all of you to fill the feedback form, which will pop up when you are going to end the Zoom meeting. It will be really helpful for us. The second technical session is on asset management tool for critical infrastructure security. Sri Mahendra, Joint Director, C-DAC Bengaluru, is working in the area of cyber security and security operations center for approximately 10 years, and he has headed the development of various tools to support the security of SCADA system. It would be really helpful to hear from you. So please.
Thank you, Vidya. Yeah, this is now I will be presenting that I am presenting asset management tool for critical infrastructure security. Actually, coming to the here critical infrastructure, what are the assets? Before going to the asset management tool or asset management, what is asset? If you take any critical infrastructure, any asset, that mean anything that has a value to the organization, that is called the asset. There will be various kinds of asset maybe there. Okay, what are the critical asset? What is the cyber asset? Critical asset means it is, suppose if we have any asset, if it is destroyed or degraded or it is wrongly performed, it is not available for that. That will be considered as a critical asset. Here, there is some cyber assets are there because of whatever that data is communication required from the plant to the control center, all these things. Various cyber assets include here is here various hardware, software, even software also become a here asset. Okay. These are whatever the connected over the LAN, WAN, or various, these are considered as an asset. I will show you what is the diagram. I will show what are the assets here. Yeah. What is coming to the asset inventory? See, suppose I want to do proper management of my all assets, we should have a proper asset inventory so that we can monitor properly if any anomalies happening, any new devices are entering, any new devices is going out of network. This can be, if you have proper inventory at place, okay, management of this assets is very easy. For that, actually, here asset inventory is a mandatory. Okay, here if we coming to the see this, I took that ICS this Purdue ISA 99 architecture I took. Here is general architecture I took. It may be little different from the some architecture to other architecture. But here, if you take a field level, sensors and actuators are there. Those are connected to the maybe RTUs or PLCs or IEDs, PMUs, any other device. Okay, those will be collecting data from the field and sending to the control center, or it may be the local control center, it may be the remote control center. Here, everything is here. Whatever sensor, actuator, what is the communication network, all RTUs, IEDs, PLCs, then what are the communication component, network component like switches, routers, these are routers, then what are the controlling devices, MTUs or remote MTUs. Here, actually, all these components are the assets. There will be various kinds of assets. It may be the some are more critical, some are it's medium, some are it's backup environment, like that is there. Actually, we have to have a, suppose I have to go only one station, then how it is reporting that. If we take any power system or any state load dispatch center or regional load dispatch center, hundreds of substation data will be moving to the control center. Okay, it is a requirement of that. It has to monitor all the RTUs, IEDs, PLCs, how it is monitoring. Is it really communicating with, it's supposed to be proper communication? It is required to monitor all those things. Okay, so we have to monitor all those assets. Why it is required? See, generally, if we take any power system or SLDCs or any other oil gas systems, okay, those are assets are distributed entire the nation. Okay, so it should have a one. If you take one state load dispatch center, it is required to monitor. Suppose if you consider maybe 200 substations are under one SLDC, it's required to look into the all 200 substations. There, what is communication devices, what is the OT devices, what are sensors connected, which is functioning now, which is not functioning now. If we have a entire thing, no, management and controlling or making the system more reliable is very easy. Suppose if you have not proper asset, what is functioning, what happening, any miscommunications happening, if you are not in control, you may not be able to take a control of this thing. Okay, so asset inventory is, okay, asset management is very much required. Okay, here, to achieve this, in order to achieve the efficiency and improvement of all these things, no, it is actually very much required for this thing. Now attack surface is drastically increasing because IT OT systems are, whatever the air gapped OT systems are merging together due to Industry 4.0, Industry 5.0, then it is, so attack surface is drastically increasing, so that we should have a proper asset inventory at one place. Okay, then we can have a proper control. Then what is asset management tool? Okay, what should be there in that? See, if you take any regional load dispatch center or national load, any load dispatch center, what are the all plant devices? Okay, it is that system should be able to discover the asset. What are the assets are in this one? Okay, what are the assets are there? That identification of assets. Okay, there is, suppose if you take one substation, what is the, how many RTUs are there, how many PLCs are there, how many phasor measurement units are there, how many IEDs are there, how many interface energy meters are there. Okay, those data, if I'm talking about one substation, those which is communicating to local control center, where it is controlling, okay, which control center it is going, is it main control center or backup control center, is it communicating with those things? Okay, those data has to be, all asset data has to be there, including what is the manufacturer of this one, what is OS is running, if you what is that, if you have this servers, these things, how all information is required. I will be discuss what is the parameters or properties, will have a little internally. I will discuss little later, which have asset discovery, asset identification of this one, then asset visibility. Okay, it is not only we'll take assets and look into that asset continuous identification of whatever the newly, if any new connected into the this our ICH network, any device is going out of the network, for what it is communicating. Suppose it is communicating with proper control center, or it is going to the out of network, then it's moving to the other data is moving to other than legitimate control centers. Those all things has to be run. This management and visibility tool has to run 24/7 to see the live network of the data flow. Those that asset visibility is required. Those details I'll speak a little later. Then there may be here, it's a thousands of these RTUs, sensors, and actuators are there. Okay, you may not able to look in what are the highest critical. There is a need of to segregate this. What is the critical things? What is the medium level critical? What is low level? What is the other thing? There is a level of criticality also has to be, that management should have that, so that we can put a right attention on right time to control and contain any attacks, those things. Okay, then it should have a proper alerting mechanism. Okay, so that alarm manager or alert manager should give what are the importance of that alerts. Okay, which is the critical devices, why it is coming, along with root cause. Alerting is not a sufficient, along with root cause, why it is came that those things is very much required. Okay, coming to this here, how methodology is required for this thing. Those are the features what supposed to be there in asset management tool. Coming to here, methodology, what actually we have, C-DAC Bangalore is designed and developed asset management tool for critical infrastructure. But here, that is with support of MeitY, Government of India. Actually, there is some methodology we followed here to collect the various asset information of this thing and show in one shot, one single place, to take a proper control, proper visibility of all those assets. Okay, actually we have initially, we have done asset identification of all the plants. Okay, all the plants. Then what are the control centers, which devices communicate, all these things actually using hybrid scanning methodology. There is actually two methodologies are here actually, passive scanning mode and active scanning mode. Based on that, we have identified the assets. Okay, then we have identified the what are the protocols is supporting. Suppose if we take a RTU, Okay, each RTU it may support a different. If you take some IED, it may support different protocol. If you take RTU, IEC 60870 Part 5104, we call it as IEC 104. Which protocol is it following IEC 104? Is it following Modbus? Is it following DNP3 or anything? What protocols it's running in on particular device? Otherwise, if it is PMU, what is IEEE 37.1? What protocols are it belongs to? Okay. After collecting data from this all information, okay, then we'll be creating the baseline. Okay, that detailed baseline I will discuss later. We'll make a baseline with this number of RTUs. Suppose substation one, this how many number of RTUs are there, IEDs are there, meters are there, that baseline. Okay, those devices are communicating with the control center. Which control center? Those IPs, MAC and whatever IP, MAC, whatever the control center details are, which thing it is communicating, all things are baseline. Once baseline, we'll create a inventory with those all properties are listed in next slide section. We'll make it with all data along with assets and their properties. We'll create a asset baseline. Okay. After that, it will go for this operators for this authorization and unauthorization. Okay, whatever the things. What are the legitimate RTUs or devices in the thing? What are the legitimate assets? These properties are in line, everything. Once inventory is done, that will be authorized with them. Then not only this one, it's not only hardware, these things, it will be along with software also. Okay, that will be a asset. It's a part of asset. Okay. If we have a particular OS, along with that OS, we have a CV database which will be mapped and shown there. Okay. After asset database, it will be baseline is created for that. Okay. Then it will be monitoring the continuously. Then actually this asset management will run in two modes. One is baseline mode. It will once capture everything and store in the asset knowledge database. Then it will go for the operational mode. Okay. Operational mode, any new devices also, legitimate devices also, that will have a with support of operator, it will go to the baseline. Okay, otherwise it will keep giving any communication going out of this baseline data. It will give it will give to the whatever the proper alerting mechanism. Okay, so accordingly, then there is a not only assets capturing. Based on asset capturing, we have a dynamic network map. How which RTUs are connected to which control center? Those map automatic creation of this map is also part of this thing. Then identification of this anomalous will be done based upon knowledge database, whatever it is given. But once this is done, there is a option for integrating into the other SOC, Security Operations Center, in a standard format, in STIX format widely used. This data can be integrated to the Security Operations Center, which can go input for that Security Operations Center, that is in STIX format and CEA format. It is widely used. Okay, that is a brief about this asset management tool. Yeah, coming to the initiatives in the worldwide, if you see that asset management is widely adopting. If you say see SANS ICS 2019-21 survey, the actual asset management tool is the very increased visibility in control system cyber assets. Actually, it is widely adopted and it's taken into the thing. Okay, this adoption of this asset management also, see, this is very widely started using in all OT systems, asset identification and management things, and security monitoring of those assets and detecting anomaly detection is also widely used into the. Yeah, coming to the exact our tool, our tool is called SCADA Netra. That is for mainly OT assessment management tool. Okay, it have a whatever discussed here previously, those features. It have a asset discovery based using that hybrid scanning, active scanning and passive scanning methods. Then baselining, it will run in two modes: baseline mode, operational mode. There is a one protocol analysis also is there. Actually, this is not a SCADA protocols are, you take it. It is a very specific for each sector. Suppose if you take a transmission sector, they widely use IEEE 104. If you go for distribution and other sectors, oil and gas sectors, they may use Modbus. Otherwise, some sectors they will use DNP3. Okay, they defined protocol analysis also part of this one, and alerting, which have alerting capabilities. I will speak a little more about protocol which is specific to our SCADA and OT environment. Okay, this asset identification is done, which along with that IP MAC, these all network architecture, how many these switches are there, routers are there, everything will be captured. It will be some snapshot is shown here. Then along with that, see, there is a OT device, like what are the RTU, PLC, those are very critical in nature. What are the criticality of the devices, which are that IT devices, which having that whatever, these things also, it will be having. Then it will be done in hybrid scanning mode. Then, as I was discussed previously, it will run in two modes, baseline mode and operational mode. Okay, then it will give a, based on knowledge database, it will give alerting capability. Then I want to tell one specifically about the SCADA activity, SCADA protocol analysis. Along with not only this thing, it has specific to the SCADA protocols. This is also called the SCADA protocol anomaly detector, which is looks to the any SCADA protocol communications. Okay, suppose if we take this Purdue model, where this asset information, asset sensors, where it will sit. If you take this asset management sensor, if you take this level 1 thing, it will be a level 1 sensor here. This will grab the information and send to the AMT server, asset management tool server. It will give the what is the network map, how they are communicating, everything. It will be in. It will be sit in every. See, if you see in level 2 also, level 3 also, all levels. This asset management sensors will sit, and it will send data to the AMT server, which will be visualized entire holistically in one place. Yeah, coming to the one important topic I want to discussion is SPADE. SPADE is a SCADA protocol anomaly detector. See, we have seen last slide. We have seen various sensors here. I would like to discuss more detail about one sensor. Then you can same thing. We can be analogy can be made for other sensors also. Suppose here I am taking that one important is process network. Their process network, there is n number of RTUs or PLCs, PMUs, IEDs, whatever that interface energy meters will be there. Okay, here we will keep it like a one sensor that is called deep security scanner. We will call it as a SCADA protocol anomaly detector, which it will run two things. Actually, it will be in passive mode. Also, passive. It runs in major by default in passive mode. It can be enabled for active mode also. Okay, based on this thing, it will, but passive mode, it will grab the all incoming, outgoing traffic from the thing using the mirror port, and it will be captured all the network traffic. Then it will take various parameters like what are the RTUs are there, MTUs are there, which RTU is communicating with which control center, what is the traffic flow rate, what is the which types of data is available. Is it only measuring data devices, sensors are there, indication sensors are there, any which type of actuators are there, is it circuit breakers related information. All information will be that is specific to the particular protocol. Okay, this is actually, it is either 104 or Modbus or any protocol. It will be captured. Then it will make a knowledge data. This is specific for the SCADA systems. Okay, then it will run that. Actually, it's over. The SPADE will run three phases. One is by see this what are the SCADA protocols defined in nature. Okay, if you take it here, it will do the deep protocol compliance. SPADE will work on three modes, three phases: deep protocol compliance checking rules. Then, based upon what are the list we have given, that DPA based whitelisting signatures. Then, whatever the DCA based whitelisting signatures, it will happen. Then it will give an alert for that. Yeah, we have a red teaming kit here that will help for the to simulate various attacks on this thing. So we have tested with the help of this whatever that our LVC tested and a red teaming kit. Okay, we have simulated various attacks, and we have tested those attacks also. Then how it is detection methodologies, how SPADE is working here. This is our test bed internally. Yeah, we have followed this standards and guidelines, what is given here. Yeah, this is my side.
Thank you, sir. We'll deal with the questions and answers after the demo session, which would be taken by Shri M. Siddharth Rao, who is Joint Director, C-DAC Bangalore, and he is also working in the area of cybersecurity and SOC for approximately 10 years, and have headed the development of various tools to support the security of SCADA system.
So good evening to everybody. So I'll just basically briefly demonstrate the AMT tool. Before I could start, I'll just explain how we have basically designed our overall thing, how we have placed it on a AMT over this LVC test bed. As we can see over here, there is a process network. Then we have local control network, and then it is connected to the outside network, corporate network. If you can see this process network, what we have done is we have got a sensor which is connected to an outside network. You can see this AMT Elvin sensor. So this is a Purdue model. Using this Purdue model, we have placed the sensor.
Run on a scan. What we do is like we.
So we have. So we have this L1 sensor, which is basically doing a passive scanning, passive sniffing of the complete network, and using that we are trying to get all the asset information, and then we will present it over a dashboard. That's what I am just trying to. I'll just show you how we have done it. So this is, we call it as SCADA Netra. We are trying to visualize all the assets. And on this, we are identifying the assets, then we are having alarms or alerts. Then we are having a timeline for that. Individually also, we are having dashboard for that. So if I just talk about what are the features basically which we are trying to cover here is three things I'll just try to cover as a overall thing. That is one is behavioral deviation. In case there is any behavioral deviation in the system, after we have identified all the assets, we will see in case there is any behavioral deviation, and then we have baseline deviation. We'll do a baselining of the whole system, and in case there is any suppose there is a RTU and a master terminal unit, so MTU, and there is a communication going on over there, and there is any kind of a malfunction or there is any violation of the rules, then we will be able to find say it as a baseline or a protocol communication deviation. Then we have a third thing, which is So we have all three behavioral, protocol, and baseline deviation. So all these three things I'll just try to cover in my brief presentation. So this is first this is already we have done in the morning, so we can see it directly instead of practically performing any kind of asset identification. So if you see this assets, you have an RTU. Here you have a router through which we are connecting to the MTU. We are right now working only on the level 1, so we will not be seeing directly the MTU. It is connected. It is 3 series network, 3.x series network. So we are not seeing it over here, although we will have a net map as well as a timeline to visualize that one. Then we have an attacker system also over here, which is 4.30. Through the IP and MAC, you can identify it. Then we have three interfaces for basically three interfaces for this what we call a sensor. One is 4.60, 4.10, and 4.1. So that is how, if you just want to visualize it, all these assets, you can see it over here. So 4.1 is basically the sensor, although it is having two more interfaces. That's why it's showing like this. And 4.2, 4.3 are RTUs which are connected to this. Before we can, I think you can again see this network diagram, whatever LVC testbed which you are, if you can make out this right side, these are all RTUs. And here on the level 2, you are having MTUs which are connected over here. So it is 4.x network, and this is 3.x network. So these are the two communications which are happening. So now we will just see as I told you, the different alerts which we are looking forward for, and I'll just so I think it is so now we are able to see the alerts. I'll just go to the the first one which I'm just trying to show is a port scan which was performed by a attacker system, that is 4.30. Okay, so you can see that there is an alert over here. Which is basically a baseline behavioral deviation. Behavioral deviation in the sense that a system is trying to scan the different ports. Basically, the communication should happen between 4.2 and 3.2. That is the baseline asset for this system, for this RTU. And 3.2 is the MTU which with which it should communicate. But it is the Kali system which we have used an attacker. It is able to communicate, and it is you can see the same thing using this Wireshark. So this is the, it's trying to scan different ports. This red lines that is an indicator. We are trying to see it through the Wireshark. So this is the behavioral deviation which we are trying to see. Then we will have we have a host scan which we will just we have conducted earlier. So this is basically an attacker system which is trying to do a host scan, and it is being indicated over here as a behavioral deviation again. So host scan is being performed. These are the different alerts which we are trying to show it in our AMT dashboard. So I'll just try to show you the PCAP also here. So you can see the ARP packets which it is trying to do a host scan across the whole network. Then similarly, you have other so one more which I would like to show is a spoofing attack which we have done. So this is IP MAC pair mismatch. Actually, what has happened over here is basically this RTU, which is having an IP of 4.2, is communicating as it says with 3.2, that is an MTU. But when you see a MAC of this is not matching with the MAC. I'll just show you across in this assets. If you just try to see the assets here. So if I see this asset, this is a IP of, this is an MAC of 4.30. That is the attacker machine. If you can just notice this, I'll go to the assets. So this is the IP of this is the MAC of that attacker machine. So these are some of the things which you can, as I could see, I've just demonstrated the behavioral deviation, then a baseline deviation. Then we would like to see one more protocol deviation, which is what we have done is we have tried to tamper the change the length of start DT of IEC 104 packet. So we'll just see one more thing so that we have an idea about overall stack. So this is a protocol deviation malformed APDU from RTU this to MTU. So unexpected packets, or there is a it was tampered intentionally, and we were able to get a alert over here. Although it is not indicative in PCAP, it will not be showing. So these are some of the basic attacks which we are able to visualize on a AMT dashboard. Apart from this, there are some other things, as I was just showing a simple network map here, like 4.2 is able to communicate with the sensor. That is through this red line, it says that it is able to communicate. Then we have one more, you can see the same hybrid network map as well, in which the overall network you can see, not just and if you try to cluster it by a network, so you have this particular network as well as this particular network, which is the overall representation of your network. You can see how what all IPs are being used, what all devices are over there in that particular network. So this is one more thing which would be of real use is we have one more thing called timeline. So here timeline is I'll just show you how what we have done is we have just stopped the RTU and then again started it, so that you can also visualize using. I'll just show you just so you can see this. If you see here, it is not communicating presently, that RTU 4.2. Now it has started communicating, so we are able to get a video type capture of the network topology which is changing. So these are some of the features which we have included in our AMT dashboard. So apart from this, we have other things also like timeline, and if you just try to see this only acknowledged, you can see the particular alerts for this. So these are all the facilities which we are having presently. Yeah, with this I just wanted to hand over this to Mr. I think that completes my presentation. Any questions are welcome, please.
Sir, there is a question in chat box. Which other companies provide similar kind of service?
Yeah, one of that I saw that what are the similar activities or the SCADA Netra equivalent tools. Actually, if you see, actually I mentioned in my presentation, what are the special publication on 1800-23, that energy sector asset management thing. There is actually a guidelines this came here that is in ending of 2020. Actually, we have started our work in 2021 January onwards only. Actually, there is for this guideline with what is the National Cyber Security Framework and what NIST special publication on energy sector asset management tool. In that angle, actually, we have our tool only. Actually, other things they have started working, but as of now, our tool is ready for that deployment and field test. Thank you. I hope I answered.
Hello. Hello. Sir, Anand from MPPGCL.
Yeah, please come.
सर एक्चुअली सर ये टूल ऑनलाइन वर्क करता है या ऑफलाइन भी वर्क करता है? ऑनलाइन मींस इंटरनेट से कनेक्टिविटी जरूरत है क्या?
It is basically we have deployed it as a for internal use. Presently we are not providing it online.
ओके सर, वन मोर थिंग सर कि जैसे ये स्काडा के लिए हमने अभी डेमोंस्ट्रेट किया है, सिमिलरली ये DCS एंड अदर ICS में भी वर्क करेगा?
Yes, that can be configured. It is customizable for any of the networks. There is not a it doesn't stop you to configure for any of these things.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Hi, sir. This is Nazir with you.
Yeah,
I have a question on the implementation of this application itself. So let me ask that how this tool gonna discover the asset? So you're using some port, right? Like LLDP. What is the protocol? It is like LLDPR.
No. So we are basically two things are there. One is presently we are completely using a passive scanning based, passive sniffing based means technology to do this job. So whatever network, if we are able to get any of the asset information through the network thing, so that only is the base for us. In case there is no network activity, we may not get any of the asset information. And again, as you said, SNMP is what we are using presently.
Yeah. Port number 512, and you might be using UDP, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So now, sir, you show me that you are going to send some kind of port scanning. For example, if I already know that all these assets are discovered by port number 512, and in some cases, if you are using 512 under TCP, if I extend the attack call TCP reverse binding, how this application gonna defend that?
Can you just repeat the last portion of your this thing question?
Okay, for example, my choice is 512, port number 512 on TCP.
Yeah.
Okay, then as long as the attacker already know that this tool is taking 512 port for the discovery purpose, and then as long as I know that 512 obviously open port in that application, then I will run the exploitation for 512 under reverse TCP binding. How this tool gonna defend that kind of attack?
I think we have.
I think we can take this question offline. You can ask this question on the email which will be provided at the end of the session.
Yeah,
we'll move ahead with our technical sessions. I would like to invite Sri Shanmukesh Pudi, Senior Technical Officer, C-DAC Bangalore, to begin his session on CI Security Training Kit.
Good evening, everyone. I'm just going to share my screen. I think you could able to see my screen, right?
Yes.
Good evening, respected dignitaries and the participants. The contest for this cyber security training kit has been set perfectly by the speakers in their corresponding presentations. The security training kit, as the name indicates, it is a training kit for the corresponding users who have been working in the SCADA environment. If they want to test their SCADA environment, they could able to build their network, and SCADA level protocols, whatever will be available along with this training kit, and the corresponding attacks or any scenarios they want to study, they could able to do it with this training kit. With this, I just made some brief PPT. In this session, we are going to have some brief PPT for around 5 to 10 minutes, and some demonstration of the tool for another couple of 5 to 10 minutes. With this, I'm going to the presentation, most of the things which has been covered. So I'll be going a bit fast, and what are the tool demonstration, I'll be doing it a bit slow. So with this thing in mind, I'll just begin my presentation. The first thing is, as everyone is aware, the SCADA supervisory control and data acquisition systems or industrial control systems, or whatever the things, is basically used for monitoring and automation of the systems. Whatever the industrial control systems is present, to monitor the controls and to see whether the things are happening in a precise manner, so that whatever the demand of, whether it could be power or whatever the industries, it could be met in a without any obstructions or delays. So this SCADA environment security is becoming very severe in the modern era because of rapid industrialization. And if you see from corresponding industrialization from industrial 1.0 to the corresponding 5.4, from some steam engines to corresponding what are the interconnected grid systems which are having till today. The present thing is like the rapid automation is increasing, the technology has been increased in a very vast manner, and the sophisticated tools are being available with everyone so that they could exploit or get into the system in a very easy manner. Why? Because the corresponding resources with respect to the hardware and the tools are being increased in an enormous manner, so that we have to take care of our systems. They are up to date with respect to cybersecurity is concerned. So in this perspective, with this is the basic architecture of the SCADA environment. This has been very extensively discussed in your previous presentation, the podium model from level 0 sensors to the corresponding level 3 devices, where your servers, application servers or data management servers, everything will be present. Now, basically, what is the requirement of a training kit? Why do you need a requirement of the training kit? See, the SCADA environment, which is working, has been present, and due to the rapid automation, the number of DCS systems has been increased. The ICS environment is increasing drastically, and the advancement in the communication systems has reducing the gap which has been present in between the IT and the OT infrastructure, due to which this increases the attack surface for the attackers who is trying to exploit the systems. They could easily get into your SCADA environment in whatever the scenarios, in whatever the ways they could find, either using with respect to the sophisticated tools or by social engineering or through any of the other means, through it may be through not much aware of the individuals who are present at the operation environment about the cyber hygiene which has to be maintained at the workplace. Based on that, they in number of ways they try to get into the system and try to observe the system for a long time and try to acquire the control of the system. At some point of time, they try to take complete they try to take complete control of the system. So in this scenario, the teams which were working in the SCADA security or domain, they're facing some challenges to understand the behavior of the SCADA system. What Sir is also telling, Narsimhan sir, he's also telling like they are conducting some sort of when it means like with respect to hydro, whatever he's mentioning, like they are removing one of the hydro stations, seeing whether the blackout study what they are conducting. In the similar way, in the network level also, some blackout study also which could be conducted, maybe not in the operational environment. There should be some simulated environment which could be provided where the users can experiment in this similar manner, so that they'll get a brief idea of how the SCADA system behave, how in the similar manner how your electrical systems behaves if something has happened. So this testbed helps in analyzing such kind of behavioral things. And the who will be operating in the SCADA system, they may be from different backgrounds, maybe from controls, or some maybe from security domains, maybe from electrical or corresponding domains. They may be having some initial training or something with respect to the security, cybersecurity is concerned. This provides some basic understanding of how the environment of SCADA network will be there, and what is the things will be present in that, how they are going to work. That basic understanding could be provided using this training kit. Next, whatever the CA security training is concerned, this training kit basically provides a realistic SCADA environment where the user can observe the behavior. As I already told you, it consists of different SCADA level components like RTUs, MTUs, and the PLC environment, and the network level components like switches, firewalls, and the monitoring devices. And the training kit addresses the SCADA security training problems by providing a realistic environment. And using this kit, user can also build their own network topologies where they could extend the networks and they could build their own network and study the behavior of the network. The corresponding manuals with respect to the user is provided where The manual contains the instructions how to build your own network based on your own requirements, and you can test with the help of the attack stack which is being provided by us. The CA security training kit basic architecture it's a part of a Purdue network which was already studied. These are where at the level 0, where level 1, where your RTUs will be present, which will be collecting data from the field devices, and here where your control system, where your control center, where the MTU, where which will be collecting the data from the RTUs and will be used for different purposes, for the different operational purposes. With this basic architecture, this will be I will be discussing in the coming demonstration. The key features of the kit is it provides a simulator SCADA network environment, and it will be provided also with a protocol anomaly detection module, where with respect to any level of protocol anomalies will be detected and alerted with respect to protocol deviations, and provides a red team attack stack where you can create some of the attacks and say what is going to happen, and guidelines to build and simulate your own networks, and enumeration of the network while communicating to the SCADA protocols. And training approach means like if suppose different levels of users are there, based on their requirement, the understanding could be enhanced with respect to the training. Thank you. This is the presentation, brief presentation. With this thing in background, I am just going to present the tool and show 1 or 2 scenarios, how it's gonna work. I'm just sharing my screen. I think just I think everyone could be able to see this environment. This is where the network has been simulated. This is the level 1 where your RTUs and RTUs are present, and this is the anomaly detection module, protocol anomaly detection module. This is your SCADA HMI related things where it will be collecting data from the here basically in this security training kit we have incorporated 2 modules, 2 protocols. One is IEC 104 and Modbus. This will be collecting from IEC 104 Modbus data, and this will be collecting the data from the Modbus with respect to the Modbus. Though data can be visualized in the UI. And this is with respect to the protocol anomaly detection module. What are the things? This is the Kali module, where this is the attacker module, where all the tools which are present in the Kali system, which is we provided, will be available to the user, where they could create whatever the attacks, different tools like Nmap, HPing, Ettercap, Metasploit. All the attack level tools are available where they could exploit and see the things. And this is the pfSense firewall, where the users could able to design their own firewall rules and experiment whatever the scenarios they want to do. Basically in this now experiment, I'm going to show you the protocol communication and man in the middle attack to send some data, and basic firewall rule, how it can help you to prevent some unnecessary communication. These 3 scenarios will be just seeing and exploiting the things. Just see, as I'm running everything now, everything, the environment has been set. Now I'll be what I'll be doing is like I'll be starting the see, if you see here, I'll be starting the Wireshark, where if you see here, this device is being communicated with other device, which is the 3.3 is the corresponding master terminal unit. It is communicating with respect to IEC 104 or 608705 protocol. And here, this is communicating with respect to Modbus. I'll be showing the Modbus packets. See here, the Modbus is communication is happening. 4.3 is the RTU IP and the 3.22 is the MTU IP. Modbus TCP communication is happening and the corresponding data is being sent to the MTU. Now, what we are going to do is like the basic data. Actually, you know, like with this protocol data, they will be getting some data. Means like whether voltage or current or frequency data will be sent to the corresponding HMI, and it will be displayed in the HMI. These are the HMI. This is the HMI, which is a VM. Is been I already opened it here. Sorry. I think it is taking a bit time. Just now, this is the Kali machine. This has been already opened it here, where I'll be doing some where I'm doing some MITM attack in between the RT and FT, and I'll just modify one of the tag values and see how the data is being reflected in the UI. See, if you see here some tag values are present. These are the tag values. These are the data points which will be collected from the RTU and it will be presented in the UI. If you see some random values is present, these randoms are dynamic and these will be changing with respect to the time. Means like every 5 or 10 seconds, whatever the interval is there, this will be changed. See, it has been changed to some. These are the simulated values. Don't worry about the values. It is presented here. So now I'll be doing is like I'll be just checking how this values could be changed, and this, if you see here, the tag ID values has been corresponding will be altered between some 44 to 54 or something. We have configured it like that. Now I'm just changing these values using the MITM attack, using the Kali stack which is present here. These are the two targets. I'm doing the ARP poisoning, and I'll introduce a filter to change the ARP poisoning I'm just doing, where these two ARP poisoning is done, and the corresponding thing will be detected by the your SPADE protocol anomaly detector. The unauthorized MAC has been identified. Maybe IP may be spoofed. Means like it is telling like due to ARP poisoning, the unauthorized access is there to the MTU. Has it is continuously happening. The alert has been raised continuously. Now what will be handling is like I'll be loading some filter where to change the tag values. I was just continuously sniffing the packets in between the two RTU and the MTU. Basically what this filter does is like it changes the values of tag ID 1 and 2 to values to 56 irrespective of what is being sent by the RT. If he could see here, some display message has been displayed. It has been changed to some 58, 6 or some. The same thing can be observed in the UI. It just take some seconds to just. See here, irrespective of what are the values sent, it continuously displays 56 here, irrespective of what is happening. And you can see here the alert window, it raises like 56 value. It is high. The corresponding rate should be in between this, but it is raising some, as it is getting 56, it's continuously raising that alert has been raised. See, whatever the values RT is sending, it will be continuously 56 only here, irrespective of what the, if I unload the filter, it will be changed to the whatever the original values will be sending. Now I'm just unloading the filter. The corresponding values, it will just cup some time just to change, get reflected. I'm just removing this MITM also. I'm just stopping it. In this way, if someone gets intruded into the system, they could really exploit the system. And the CC now, as I remove the filter, it is getting changed to some other values. In this way, you can even change the circuit breaker status and see the conditions. If someone knows the protocol very well, what bytes to be changed, it could be easily done. Now, next scenario, what I will be doing is like I'll be just conducting some some DOS using some of these tools here, where I'm just flooding the packets. I'm just flooding the packets. You could see the same thing in Wireshark with respect to this is concerned. See, it's continuously flooding the packets. The RTU will be responding very lately if there is a flooding of such things is present. I'm just remove that. Now I'm just going to introduce the firewall environment which was present here. Just a basic, just an introduction to the firewall environment. See, this is a pfSense firewall where I'm accessing this UI from here. Here you would see the interfaces. It is having three interfaces as shown here. One is WAN, this is connected to the cloud, and the LAN, which is connected to the other RTU subnet. And the other thing is like LAN 1, which is connected to this MTU subnet. Here you could write some basic rules or something here. If you see, this is WAN as I shown, this is LAN where your RTU environment is present, and this is LAN 1 where your MTU, this environment is present. Here I have just written two rules to accept anything. Now I'm just opening some SCADA environment. The terminal has been opened. Now what I'm doing is that I'm trying to ping the any RTUs which was present. The RTU control is IP is some 10.0.4.2, suppose. It is pinging now. Now what I do is like I just disable this ICMP rule which I am told to access it. I apply it. Now I just ping it. You can see no ping is happening from here. See, in this way you can make your network bit secure or something. Now if I enable this rule again, the things will happen as usual. So in this way you can write your rules, what ports to allow or only what IPs connection should come. Like this you can make your, you can apply your own controls and make the environment a bit more secure. This is a bit introduction of the tool. Using this tool is not stationary. It could be extended to whatever the network. You can build your own network. We'll be providing the manuals how to build this your own network and exploit the things or observe your network. With this, I conclude the session. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I'm stop sharing my screen. Vigya, I think you can take the control from here on. Hello.
Thank you, Shanmukesh. I hope you all got the most out of by the demo shown by him. Before coming to the concluding remarks, I would like to request all of you to fill the feedback form, which will pop up when you are going to end the meeting. The same form link has been given in the chat box as well as YouTube chat box as well. So, Shri R.K. Sendil sir, Associate Director, C-DAC Bangalore, is an integral part of RTSG group and has been managing various critical infrastructure security activities. I would like to invite him for the concluding remarks. Please, sir.
Okay. Good evening, all. Okay. Yeah. I'm sure that this was a very useful session and it was a very engaging session. I thank all the speakers here. First, I would like to thank Madam Tulika Pandey, Scientist G MeitY, for supporting all our CA security initiatives and being with us for the entire session and for addressing the audience. And I would like to thank our Director General, Shri Magesh Ithirajan, for his encouragement and guidance in all our initiatives. I would like to thank our Executive Director, Dr. Sudarshan, for giving us an opportunity and being the motivating force behind this event. I would like to thank our Group Head and Senior Director, Shri Bindu Madhava, for initiating this event and for his guidance and conduct of this workshop. I would like to thank Dr. Debrata Das, Director at IIITB, for taking time to be with us and address the audience. So he was mentioning about the various recent attacks which had happened, and he was mentioning about we should have a vaccine before the attack. So we have to address in various sectors, like not only power sector, we have to involve in securing the various critical infrastructure. We have mentioned about the various incidents which has happened in one of the health sector and the finance sector also. So there's a need to address the various critical infrastructure securities, not only power, other energy sectors also we have to address, and other critical infrastructure sectors also we have to address. And I would like to thank Sri Narasimhan, CMD Grid India, for their excellent keynote talk. I would like also tell that it was a great association of working with Grid India. Almost all our solutions, they are the domain experts who give our suggestions, and all our research activities are going along with their inputs and suggestions. And I thank him for his support. And I would like to thank Sri Naveen Kumar Singh, DG and CIPC, for his keynote. And I would also want to mention that we'll be greatly involved in, we'll be happy to get involved in the capacity building activities in the critical infrastructure security, which NCIPC is undertaking. And he had mentioned about the various attack surface vectors and the various state actors issues in providing the remote access. And we have to consider the various, like he has mentioned, the ransomware actors and various recent attacks which has happened in our country, like he has mentioned about the attack in the Tata Power, AIMS, and the JNPT, and various some of the SLDCs also. So it's not that it is away from us. The attack is a perennial problem, and it is there in with us, and we have to be vigilant, and we have to create various solutions, and we have to have methods and policies to secure our critical infrastructure. Lastly, I would like to thank all the participants here for showing a keen interest in attending this event. We have around around 500 participants attending this session. See, we had one YouTube live channel also made exclusive for the participants, because this session was not able to accommodate all the participants. This shows the need for such events to have it in our country. So this frequency of these events and this workshop should be a very regular basis. We should have this, and training is one of the main thing which should be addressed. We have seen this training kit which has been demonstrated, Mr. Shanmikesh Pudi. This training kit was basically designed and developed for the benefit of the security practitioners. So this is, see, we can, on a live system, we won't be able to do any testing, and also this is a separate live virtual constructive method of having security toolkits. So wherever training institutes can have this practitioners, wherever organizations can have that, and academic institutions can have that, so they can use it for training their professionals and a hands-on basis in their OT security method. So basically, this is focused only on the OT security. So various OT sector, and it can address to various sectors. We can customize this for the various sectors. It can be a power sector, it can be a health sector, it can be a oil and gas sector, or any other critical infrastructure security. Like Bindu sir was telling, around 16 critical infrastructure sectors are there. Like that, we can address to each of the areas. Even though the needs might be different, we can have a single framework, and we can address these various sectors. And this security should be a complete ecosystem. It is, we should have simulation and impact using a test bed. Test bed is one of the main component which is used here, and we should have the various countermeasures developed here. And one thing point, almost all the speakers stressed was we should have indigenous solutions developed. And C-DAC is there developing indigenous solutions, not only in the security. Before that, they were into the SCADA thing. They were telling SCADA solutions, EMS solutions, and all, as CMD Power Grid has mentioned. And now we are into security. We develop indigenous SCADA security solutions. And C-DAC Bangalore has set up the indigenous SCADA security test bed here in Bangalore, which is used for various developing security solutions and for OT training and other purposes. This is one of the things. And coming back again to the security training kit, as initially our AD, Dr. Sudarshan mentioned, this will be made available to the participants on a trial basis. Like we'll make it available in a cloud, and then it will be available for a few days so that you can give your inputs, so that based on that, we can work on that if something is to be improved. And if any industry or any institution is interested, request you to contact us. So this will be put into the cloud after taking the permission from IT, and then we'll be giving to this participants who will be interested. And last but not least, the feedback from you is very important. That will guide us to go to the next level. And I request all the participants to give the feedback. And the participants can be in touch with us in any of the things whichever interested. Like if you have any doubts future also in this any of the areas, you can be in touch with us in email, and we'll respond to that. That's it. We have come to the end, and thank you all once again. Have a nice day.
Thank you, each and every one of you. We have come to the end of this workshop on critical infrastructure security. Once again, I would like to request you all to fill the feedback form, which will appear when you will leave the Zoom meeting. And it is also given in the chat box. It's also given in the chat box for the YouTube or the people who have joined through YouTube. Thank you and have a nice day. You all can leave the meeting.